My name is Otis Dunning, and I'm the Manufacturing Program Coordinator. It basically means that anybody that comes in looking for a job in manufacturing, I get them orientated. That means our application process, assess them, any testing that needs to be done, our assessments or company's assessments, and then I try to meet with each individual and try to see what their actual career goals are to make sure that we're getting them into a career, not just a job opportunity. I've been here a little over 3 years, first as a public ally, and then I got hired on full time. So it's been a nice journey. The story that really got me going was it was a participant, and that's when I was in my first year of working here, not as an ally, and a participant went through the program. He was going to work for a company of ours, and that we were working with, I should say. And we assessed him, went through everything else, and a couple months later, I was coming out of a store, and he was going in. And he ran up to me and gave me one of the biggest hugs I had ever seen. And I recognized who he was, and he was like, "Man, you helped me so much. I have a place to stay now." He pointed out that he had a new car, that his situation had really changed. And that's kind of what motivates me every day when I see people like that, and being able to help them, achieve whatever their goals in. Of course, our goal is to get them in a manufacturing job, or construction, because that's what we mainly do here. But I think if I can just help put a person on the right path.
Eric Parker had an inspiring vision for building up working families in every part of Milwaukee. His work lives on today through WRTP Big Step as we move our collective efforts forward to bring hope and opportunity to all Milwaukeeans. WRTP Big Step is making a real impact for Milwaukee workers by connecting them with the workforce development and training skills that they need to succeed. I've seen firsthand how public-private partnerships can address our workforce readiness challenges. I've also seen the value of apprenticeship programs for workers and businesses. Apprenticeships provide workers with paid, on-the-job training, and they provide businesses with the skilled workers they need to grow and remain globally competitive. In February, I reintroduced my Partners Act that will bring businesses and technical colleges together to help fill open positions and train people for a career rather than just a job. We know that if we invest in public-private partnerships, we can boost workforce readiness and provide our businesses with the skilled workers that they need to grow our economy. My legislation will help scale up our apprenticeship programs and help close the skills gap in Wisconsin. I'm so proud to be your partner in the United States Senate as we continue our work to help Milwaukee workers reach their full potential. Thanks for all you do, and have a great night.
Good morning, and thank you for attending our webinar. My name is Stephanie Moreno, and I am the Women in Apprenticeship Coordinator for WRTP Big Step. WRTP Big Step is a nationally recognized industry intermediary that are aligning the needs of the industry, workers, and the community. Wisconsin Regional Training Partnership, WRTP, was initially created to renew our traditional industry base in the Milwaukee area during the 1990s. The recovery of the manufacturing, retirement of an aging workforce, and diversification of the regional economy created a growing skills shortage by the end of the decade. In response to this threat to economic growth and prosperity, we created our successful model for pre-employment training for job seekers to qualify for family-sustaining jobs in the industrial sector. Building Industry Group Skilled Trades Employment Program, Big Step, formed in an attempt to increase the number of women, minorities, and younger workers employed in the building trades. WRTP Big Step facilitates more effective coordination of employer-driven worker readiness to best ensure that individuals preparing for employment gains the skill and experiences that employers need. We are a national leader in developing sector-based creative workforce solutions by bringing together both resources and partners in their efforts to help their members. With a dual customer approach, the model is not just about retaining jobs in the community, but also about maintaining the competitiveness of the companies that provide those jobs. WANTO, Women in Apprenticeship and Non-Traditional Occupations Act of 1992 authorizes the U.S. Department of Labor to award grants to assist employers and registered apprenticeship programs in promoting the recruitment, training, employment, and retention of women in apprenticeship and non-traditional occupations. In 2019, WRTP Big Step was awarded a WANTO grant. Our project, Raising Women's Success in Apprenticeships Collaborative, established a collaborative network that will inform and reinforce linkages to Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, WIOA, both at the state and local level, other DOL-funded apprentice projects, as well as supporting union and employer apprentice needs. Our WSA partners have substantial experience working with women to both engage them in the apprenticeship road and helping them succeed. In addition, our partners have substantial working relationships with employers and corresponding union partners to prepare them to place women in non-traditional occupations.
Hi, my name is Tracy Cary. I'm the Executive Director of Midwest Urban Strategies. Midwest Urban Strategies is a consortium of 13 urban workforce development boards that spans from Wichita, Kansas, all the way to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. These are workforce boards that are innovative and forward-thinking, who have organized together to improve the delivery of services in their local areas. One of the key things that we have been working on is addressing services that are targeted for underrepresented populations. And one of those groups of underrepresented populations includes women. Women in non-traditional occupations such as construction or manufacturing, technology and engineering, those sectors and occupations that we oftentimes don't see women pursuing in equal numbers. Similarly, we're looking at women in apprenticeship and what some of the challenges are for women in that space and how we can support them through policies and programs to better acclimate through the process along their career pathway. And we are working currently with WRTP Big Step, which is a workforce intermediary focusing on the construction and manufacturing industries, on a WANTO, or Women in Apprenticeship and Non-Traditional Occupations grant, to improve the process for women who are looking to enter into these kinds of occupations. We're delighted to be here today and look forward to the conversation.
Hi, I'm Joyce Guy. I'm the Executive Director of the West Oakland Job Resource Center, which is a center that came up out of a policy around the Oakland Army Base / Oakland Global Logistics Center in Oakland, California, where we work closely with the social and economically disadvantaged individuals in the Oakland community or the Greater Bay Area. We work extensively with the economically and socially disadvantaged individuals of our communities, and we're really excited to be a part of the WANTO grant and work with WRTP in helping people get jobs and training that will get them economically stable in our local community.
Morning, my name is Stephen Tam. I'm with the West Oakland Job Resource Center. As Joyce has mentioned earlier, the West Oakland Job Resource Center grew out of a jobs policy from the city of Oakland when they were transforming the Oakland Army Base into a global logistic complex, whereby they will house 10 cross-dock warehouses, creating 1,000 to 1,500 TDL employment opportunities for minorities and women and for the local communities. As the job policy has it, there is a local hire ordinance of hiring 50% local residents and 25% disadvantaged residents. As mentioned earlier, we also serve the disadvantaged population, which includes women and minorities and those who are economically disadvantaged. And as such, we have been working with tenant employers, which provide our clients with first opportunity to fill those job openings before they open it to external candidates. So we're happy to be involved with WRTP on the WANTO grant to expose women to some of these non-traditional employment, especially in the commercial aid truck driver position, where currently there is only 2.4% women representation in that industry. So we would like to see if we can increase that. Opportunities for women, they pay significantly higher wages, whereby folks can make a great living on.
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Demetria Lynn Strickland. I am the Executive Director for the Aerospace Joint Apprenticeship Committee. We are based out of Seattle, Washington, and just bring greetings to everyone. AJAC is a nonprofit apprenticeship service provider who is mandated to develop and implement employer-driven apprenticeship programs statewide, open to both union and non-union employers, again, based on location and occupation. We're a little bit different in that we work with the incumbent workforce. So as our name suggests, Aerospace Joint Apprenticeship Committee, we've actually expanded out and fall up underneath a broader umbrella of advanced manufacturing. So we work not only in aerospace, but we have employer relationships in agriculture, biomedical, defense, space, food processing, and more to come. So one of the challenges is that the advanced manufacturing industries is basically been traditionally not representative of women or people of color. So that is our challenge. Again, we work with the incumbent workforce. Therefore, we have had to provide pipelines into industry for qualified individuals to be able to get their foot in the door. And we do that by providing a pre-apprenticeship program called Manufacturing Academy, as well as youth apprenticeship. And in these programs, we are able to provide a diverse group of qualified individuals to be able to get into industry. And we work with employers to be able to upskill them through the apprenticeship program. So one of the reasons that we wanted to partner with WANTO and this grant is, again, to be able to get more women into industry, more women and more people of color into industry. And since our partnership with WANTO, we've been able to market out to about 4,500 women. Most of them have been the high school age to be able to get the new generation excited about careers in manufacturing. We've also been able to provide success stories and have them printed in our local news to be able to, again, promote the family wage occupations available in the manufacturing industries. And so we've also been able to increase the number of women in our pre-apprenticeship program. And this really has happened because of COVID. All of our programs are provided virtually. And so that really mitigated some of the barriers that some of the women that wanted to participate in our pre-apprenticeship program were experiencing, which was childcare and transportation. So we have increased our number of women participation in our pre-apprenticeship program to just under 30%. So those completers are now being connected with our our partner employers to be able to get into those entry-level jobs, and we will continue to work with the employers to be able to get them into apprenticeship. And one of the other things that we've been able to do in partnership with the WANTO grant is to be able to start an all-female cohort in partnership with our Washington Correctional Center for Women here. So these are currently incarcerated women who are participating in our pre-apprenticeship program. So that they can get the entry-level skills. So upon their transition back into the community, we are going to partner them with our employers to be able to help them to get into those family wage occupations. So, overall, we have a long way to go with women participation in the advanced manufacturing industries, but it is grants like this that help us to not only to observe and to get best practices from other programs, but to be able to further increase our mandate to have more women and underrepresented individuals in our apprenticeship program. So with that, thank you and enjoy the conference.
Good morning and thank you. Welcome again to our webinar on how we can invest in women to help rebuild our economy. My name is Randy Berth and I'm the Vice President and Chief Innovation Officer at WRTP Big Step. As Stephanie Moreno mentioned earlier, we are a industry-led, worker-centered, community-focused intermediary that builds partnerships around the sectors that we're serving to create better ways of promoting, recruiting, advancing women and people of color into the industry so our industries can keep and grow jobs so that there can be more opportunities for our community residents. We form strategic partnerships that are very intentional, that like this, that are really broad and focus on specific items such as, women. When I first started in manufacturing, I was lucky to be the second woman in a manufacturing facility. I had a Rosie the Riveter, leftover Rosie the Riveter, that helped show me the ropes. But I also realized being the only female in a facility was, very difficult. And I'm proud to say that we have just done a needs assessment of over 220 firms in Wisconsin. And now 78% of our firms have women, on the shop floor and working. And, it is, you have to see one to be one, and is one of our, kind of models. But this consortium with the West Oakland Jobs Resource Center, the Aerospace Joint Apprenticeship Committee, the Midwest Urban Strategies has been so valuable to look at this issue from a variety of perspectives and a variety of industries. So we're going to begin today with a panel made up of three components of what we feel are instrumental in supporting women in non-traditional occupations. Our first panelist is Jerry Roberts. Mr. Roberts serves as a Director of Philanthropic and Corporate Engagement for the Midwest Urban Strategies, which is a consortium of 13 U.S. Department of Labor workforce development boards, working to marry traditional workforce development processes with economic development. Our second panelist is Annie McDonald. Annie I can't say it tongue-tied today. She's the Executive Director of the American Apprenticeship Readiness Fund in Los Angeles, Orange County Building and Construction Trades Council. Our third panelist is Mallory Martindale. Ms. Martindale has nearly completed an apprenticeship from the Aerospace Joint Apprenticeship Committee, AJAC, one of our WANTO partners. We have gathered all three to have a discussion from the investor, the policy, and the worker voice perspective. Each of the panelists will give a brief introduction of their work in creating opportunities for women in non-traditional occupations. And once each of them has spoken, we'll open it up to questions and answers. So if we could begin with Jerry.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you. I am really excited to be here. My name is Jerry Roberts. I am the Director of Philanthropic and Corporate Engagement at Midwest Urban Strategies. You heard from my Executive Director earlier in the program We are a consortium of 13 urban workforce boards in the Midwest. And we are really working to marry traditional workforce and economic development strategies. So when we look at our work, and first let me back up a little bit. I have been in the workforce space for a number of years in many different capacities. First, obviously, as an employee of a large corporation, and I did that for many years before I made the jump to workforce and economic development. I spent about 12 years as a direct workforce development practitioner and working on economic development projects before I moved into the space of philanthropy, where I managed workforce development grant making, as well as program-related investments geared towards the workforce ecosystem. After about 7 or 8 years doing that work, I transitioned to Midwest Urban Strategies because the work that they're doing aligns with what I see as the goals for a more equitable economic space. We at Midwest Urban Strategies like to think of ourselves as an innovation laboratory, and we do that work through a lens of equity. So when we think about investing in programs aimed at women in non-traditional employment, we look at it through that lens of equity. And we have also had a great opportunity, whether fortunate or unfortunately, during this new age of COVID, to see that the folks that have been most impacted have been women, and specifically women of color, Black and brown women. And so when we think about how we do this and what it looks like, we are really committed to making that happen. From a funding standpoint, you will not find a lot of folks in the funding community that say that we fund specifically programs aimed at women in non-traditional occupations. But what is happening is, and where the alignment is making sure because funders, are focused right now, especially on equity, that we have a focus on equity in our workforce development work. When we talk about programs aimed at women in non-traditional employment, we're talking about equity. We're talking about everything from job quality, making sure that workplace conditions are fair and equal and safe for everyone, free from sexual harassment, free from gender discrimination, age discrimination, and that is how we make the move. I truly believe this with funders. So with my funders hat on, we have to look at what equity looks like in our communities and for those in it. In this particular instance, we're talking about women. What does that look like? How do our programs align with, say, a funder's goal to increase the number of credential attainment for underserved or disadvantaged populations? They don't say that they're funding women in non-traditional employment, but they are looking at that. And then how do we align our programming, our thinking to do that? Also, when we do that, what are we looking at as it relates to the ability to take that idea and scale it? Because we can do it for a certain population and across sectors, whether it's construction, whether it is in manufacturing. We know that we have work to do in healthcare, again, around women, across everything from entry level all the way up to the highest rungs. So funders right now are really looking at equity. I want us to think about that as we have this conversation today. And I will be here, and my contact information is on the screen, and I'm certainly happy as we go through this to hear from the other panelists and what that means to them. And then also ideas on what folks think or what folks need from the funding community in order to make sure that they are addressing women across sectors in non-traditional employment. Thanks a lot, and I look forward to being with you today.
Thank you, Jerry. That was really wonderful. And Next, I like to move into what we're calling more the policy side of it. Only, Annie, I am so sorry for butchering your name. You know, I must have had.
I should have taken my husband's name because Rodriguez is easier to say, but it's St. Patrick's Day, so we're going to go with McMonigal.
Well, it's some really great stuff is happening in California, and you know, in the construction side, there's a whole lot around, you know, project labor agreements and community workforce agreements and how women fit in or don't fit in, and you know, this whole national MC3 and how it connects to EOS. So I had really hoped Annie would speak today, and lucky to have her. So Annie, you want to go next?
Absolutely. So good morning, everybody. I'm Ann McMonigal. I am the executive director of the longest title ever, Los Angeles and Orange County's Building and Construction Trades Council's Apprenticeship Readiness Fund. Obviously, we didn't have a marketing director when we came up with the name, but we're one of the first nonprofits that was formed by the Building Trades Council. So my board is made up of signatory contractors and signatory union representatives. And our sole purpose is to promote and sustain apprenticeship readiness programs utilizing the multi-craft core curriculum, the MC3, throughout LA and Orange County. We are the largest MC3 training entity in the country. 75% of MC3 programs are in California, and then 80% of those are ours. We are, in our state, we are an essential industry. So we are still cooking with gas in our region and have billions and billions of dollars of project labor agreements that strategically target disadvantaged communities, as well as of recent, in the last 7 to 8 years, we've actually been calling out women as a target group in that training as well, and in those policies. So we have over 12 MC3 programs in our region. We have trained in the last 2 years, although COVID kind of shut us down for a while. We've trained a little over 2,000 individuals who've graduated with certificates, and we've placed over 900 of those who are still working and retained in apprenticeship programs across 27 different trades. We even got someone in the elevator constructors who we transitioned right out of a state corrections facility. So we are working with incredibly diverse partners. We work with community-based organizations. We work with community colleges. We work with adult schools. We work with the 10 workforce development boards that are within our 2-county region. Basically, under our umbrella of the fund, we work as the construction intermediary for a region. And what does that look like? It means that we leverage everyone's resources and go after regional funding opportunities to be able to fund the most amount of training for the most amount of people throughout the region. We are a very large region, right? So nobody would commute from it could take you 3 hours to get to one end of one of our counties. And so people will not do that, obviously, for free job training, but we have project labor agreements in every area of our county. So what we needed to do was set up a training that was close to the local community that can give access to that training to all of those folks without worrying about the transportation issues. And so that's why we've partnered across the board with different entities. One additional strategic thing that we've done, in particular, to increase the number of women in the trades, in addition to the MC3 alone and offering it to diverse regions of our county, we've been able, at this point, our graduates are very reflective of what our community looks like. 87% of our graduates are people of color, are Black and brown folks, and then the 17% are women. So we know 17% is not the 51% we are looking for that will match the population, but it has certainly pushed the pendulum in the right direction. So what we're doing now is we're looking at statewide and affecting statewide policies that are looking at creating statewide project labor agreements. We've been able to do that in the realm of transportation, starting with high-speed rail, which is covering the length of the state. We also have another very large transportation initiative that was funded by Senate bill and voted on again, called SB1, and it's basically to redo all of the bridges, roads, trade and logistics infrastructure around the state from Humboldt County down to San Diego County. So it covers the length of our state. And so when we're calling out target populations for the training to lead into those jobs, because all of those jobs will be operating under project labor agreement, they will be union jobs. And so the MC3 is called out specifically in those policies. So in order to be placed on those jobs, you need to have an MC3 graduate certificate. And then in addition, women are called out in addition to veterans, disadvantaged communities, ex-offenders, justice involved are also all called out in that. So the more we're able to call the women as a population out and as a priority in these project labor agreements, the more access we have to training dollars that can help us and guide us to recruiting more women into the trades. But one of the things that I'm very excited about that we just received funding for is that the one thing we really feel like we were missing, at least in our region, and there are pots of it of different groups around the state that specialize in recruitment and outreach to women. But what we have really come to realize in our areas, we need to do a deep dive and a strategic campaign to figure out messaging campaign to figure out the right language for the right population and the right person giving that message. So we've identified young women still in school age, between elementary school through high school, and then women who are returning back to the workforce, single mothers, may have had other careers, maybe transitioning out of careers and industries that have been severely impacted by COVID. So we're really looking at, we've gotten some state funding so that we're going to hire and work with a campaign research firm that does a lot of stuff around political campaigns and et cetera. But we figured they would be a great entity to help us dive deep into focus groups. What language hits with folks? Should we be on TikTok? Should we be sending out mailers? Where should we be? So we really think that we're going to start delving into this work at the end of the summer, starting at the end of the summer, and take a year to really find out what that's going to be. And I really think that's going to help us in terms of increasing the number of women that we have in our programs. So I'll turn it over, and then I'm happy to answer any questions.
Actually, I just want you to help clarify something too, because those of us that work in the construction industry understand what a project labor agreement is.
Oh, yes.
Or what requirements are. But because we have this national group here and we've got different sectors that are unfamiliar with that, and more importantly, the group Jerry works with in the Midwest Urban Strategies, all those workforce boards, of how do they understand if a city or a state is putting a requirement on a project, or employers and unions are trying to negotiate terms of a contract. Like, how can we as a community network be supportive or make sure that those requirements are fair and good and can be fundable for organizations like you? So it's not just setting the rules, but it's implementing and making sure whatever those rules are can be achieved.
Great. Absolutely. Apologies. So 2 things I'll just break out a little bit more. One is the multi-craft core curriculum, which is the MC3. That is a nationally recognized curriculum that was created by the North America's building trades unions. It was universally agreed upon and created by all of the research departments of all of the various trade union apprenticeship programs. And it's basically a base intro curriculum that gives an orientation to the industry, includes an OSHA 10 and a CPR certificate, but also gives a glimpse of what the reality of the industry is, and then the different trades and crafts that exist within the industry, so that individuals are not training for one apprenticeship program. In our region, we have 27 affiliated apprenticeship programs across 49 different crafts. So you can, because the way the other unions work, there's seniority, but in our industry, there is not. Construction does not have seniority. It's all about personal drive and hard work, and then the contractors will recognize you and constantly call for you. And the more that happens, the more training, the more on-the-job hours you get, and the quicker you will journey out. Every apprenticeship program is 3 to 5 years, depending on the craft. And so, again, what's gonna keep you going is to be on top of the educational portion, and then to constantly be hustling on the job site. So foremans and journeymen and contractors are like, please send her. We want her. We want her. We want her. And then that's how you continue to be successful in your career. And for you to be successful in a career that is dirty, hard, you're laying tar as a roofer in 105-degree weather, you're really, really hustling. It has to be something that you chose and that you're passionate about, not something that you found because you didn't have a high school degree that would allow you to get into all these other trades. So we work with a whole system of folks to make sure that all of the bare minimum of the educational requirements are there, so an individual can pick a program that is right for them. Secondly, all of our union work operates under a project labor agreement. The project labor agreement is a contract between a contractor and the union itself. When you're working on a very large project, it will be between the Building Trades Council that is the umbrella of all the local unions, and they will be working with, if it's a public project, the county, whatever the elected office is that is overseeing that. And in that project labor agreement, they will talk about the projections and the predictions of the numbers of each trade and each craft that will need to be on that job. And when you're doing a project labor agreement, it triggers another word that is called prevailing wage. Prevailing wage is the base wage for union apprenticeship, and it allows for a journey to apprentice ratio on a job. So just because a program's coming to your region and they say they're going to be 300 jobs, because 300 jobs are called out in a project labor agreement, that does not mean 300 new openings for people. That means X number of journey electricians are going to be on that project, and then they need 4-year, 3-year, 2-year, and intro apprentices on that project. So you may only be looking at 15 new jobs out of that, depending on what the project is. So the more project labor agreements exist, the more openings are created to allow for that. And then within the language of a project labor agreement, you have local and target hire, where you can say, we want people from this community, from these zip codes, to have access to these jobs. And before we established, I've spent the last 10 years working on establishing MC3 programs throughout the state. Before that, there wasn't really a mechanism to give those community members like a pre-training to see if this is something they wanted to do. And you can understand that somebody couldn't just walk onto a job site ready to be a pipe fitter. They have no idea what a pipe fitter is. So we've created a free to anyone who is interested in the MC3, because we go for grants, and this is where funders come in. This is a free training that we offer folks. Not only is it a free training that we offer to folks, we go for additional funds to make sure that we can cover the placement costs. Because for an individual who graduates from an MC3 program, if while we're working to place them, if the painters call our organization and say we need 5 people from these zip codes starting tomorrow, if you're working with a lot of folks from disadvantaged communities, they may not have the $1,100 to get every intro painter's tool, not universal tools, not just a general tool pack from Home Depot, but painter specific tools. And then they also need to be indentured into the union, because you cannot go to work for a union contractor unless you're in the union. So you have to pay the initiation dues, have your PPE, and show up. So you can't just show up at a job site at the gate ready to go. You need to show up with all of your materials. So, and that can be quite a lift for folks. So we work to get funding to be able to cover those costs as well.
Awesome.
I addressed everything. Am I over caffeinated or under caffeinated? I can't tell.
You did really great. You did really great. And now I'd like to move on to what is my always the favorite part of anything that we do on these, and that's really the worker voice. And Mallory Martindale works at AMT, the Senior Aerospace in Arlington, Washington. And Mallory, I think all of us want to figure out how we can make it easier to recruit women into these industries or fund women or whatever. So could you help us understand why you chose a career in manufacturing, and how can we help, or how can we get more women just like you to want to be in a non-traditional industry like manufacturing?
So I began my career in manufacturing by chance, really. Following high school, I was given an opportunity to work at a machine shop filing papers. I had no idea what a CNC machine was. If my high school would have provided manufacturing seminars or classes or even shop tours of local facilities, I would have started my career sooner. Becoming an apprentice has given me an opportunity to earn college credits during full-time employment, and meanwhile doubled my wage. Above all, the experience and education I gained from an apprenticeship program opened the door to leadership role I have now. I think that more women haven't had a chance to hear firsthand from women actively employed in trade jobs. I had a misconception of trade jobs being dirty and physically demanding, when that's in fact not the truth. Women are experiencing historical prejudice and stereotypes and lack of schooling on caring manufacturing techniques, and a presumption of low pay when considering a trade job. In my opinion, the most significant barrier is lack of awareness. I think that 3 things that companies or training programs could do to help more women pursue careers in manufacturing and trades would be clearly advertise pay scales for union and non-union types of work, including career tracks in manufacturing, which played a huge part in my decision to enroll as an AJAC apprentice. Also, establish mentoring programs within companies interested in increasing the amount of women in the workforce, and shop tours and seminars. Walking through Family Day at Boeing when I was younger inspired me, and I imagine an educational walkthrough of any trade could spark interest in someone.
Awesome. Well, let me ask you another question, and I'll ask some more questions. I'll get it back to Jerry and Ann as we go. But what would you see as the more significant barriers preventing women from choosing the kind of path you chose?
Well, I think the most significant barrier is lack of awareness. I think that we need more people, speaking to younger women and explaining what it's really like to work on the shop floor.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jerry, how about, let me go back to you for something. So what are different investors and funders thinking about in relationship to women in non-traditional jobs? I know at one time we had wanted to go after a grant for women that would go in manufacturing, construction, and one of the funders is like, why? That's not a good field for them. We don't think that's a good idea. And so has that changed over the years, or what would you say our other colleagues think about funding something like helping women get in sectors that we're talking about today?
Randy, that's a great question, and it's so true, right? I mean, historically, I've been in rooms like that, right? One of the things today, though, I think that has shifted, again, is the emphasis on equity and equality. And while folks, again, think it's just about Black and brown folks, we really do, when we think about equality, we think about our friends in the LGBTQ community, we think about women, we think about everything across the spectrum. And again, like I mentioned earlier, that is the way that funders are thinking. It's about how do we, and it's tough, right? Because some folks, some funders have made a strong stand and said, we are about equality, gender equality, all the things. And then there are others who are saying, we want to make the world a better place, right? And what does that look like? So it's up to us really to show, and this is a data-driven field, here are what the numbers look like, right? And then we can dig deeper into things like, when we talk about union space, we know that we have more equality in wages, but then when we have non-union, we know we have to start looking more at wage, income inequality and wage inequality. So I think it's about how we do that. The other thing I think too is when we frame it around not just access for everybody, including women, right, in this case, around non-traditional employment, it's about what types of supports, and I say that, that underrepresented populations might need, right? And so again, funders may look at that from a perspective of why would they want to do that? That's not a good job for women. To now, well, how do we make sure that they have the supports that they need? So when you're looking for grant funding to maybe support, say, federal funding that you have, when you start looking at private funding, what does it look like to be able to provide the supports, right? And some of that could be as simple as being able to support infrastructure to provide the training for internal staff. So to be able to access resources to train internal staff on all things equality. It could be making sure that when we look at an industry that is 90% male, and 90% male and 90% white, how do we then look at providing infrastructure support to be able to increase those numbers for underserved populations with a focus on women? I mean, so there's ways that we frame that, but so funders are thinking about that, and they are thinking about it in that context.
That's really awesome. I'm happy to hear that. And, as a workforce intermediary like WRTP Big Step, where it's almost like a reverse workforce development. When you look at the federal government, you're separated by, are you a youth? Are you dislocated? Are you disadvantaged? Are you, like all those different, are you a veteran? Whereas when we're in the industry, they say, what population do you want? We're like, all of them. And for an employer to partner with, 30 different agencies because they want 30 different types of women or people of color or, whatever, the intermediary then plays the role on, we'll help you reach out to the community because we're a very inclusive model. And we'll then also help community understand their person was placed, their person was trained, their person is doing well. And then that feedback loop of the employer doesn't have to call 30 agencies. The employer lets us know and we call 30 agencies to kind of feed that. How does the funders look at like intermediaries like us where, we're not really a dual customer since we're focused on the industries and people who want to be in our industries, but in many cases, it's kind of a dual customer reverse model. Like, how do funders think about places like us or what Annie's talking about?
Well, Randy, as you know, intermediaries, they have a sweet spot, as I say, in the ecosystem, the workforce ecosystem. And that even when I was in the funding chair, right, I was supporting in some capacity some of the work that you all were doing, if you recall. And that's because you have an opportunity to do things. Intermediaries have an opportunity to do things without the restrictions of say, a workforce board that has restrictions based on the type of funding they get. So to be able to fund an intermediary that is able, like WRTP Big Step, like an industry association, like Midwest Urban Strategies, we're able to try and do things, right, through intermediaries, right, that we may not be able to do. So we're able to take some additional risks And I think that that is, as we start looking at how funders can be in the work, to really think about it that way.
I would just second one of the things about the funders and that we're always grateful for is when there's flexibility in the definition, which is why for us, in project labor agreements and when we're saying target hire different folks, what we're really saying, when we're able to say the zip codes in the community and name that, it means that that community, the face of that community is different than the face of the city over here, but we want it reflective of the city over here. So our numbers and are all over the place for different cities. The face of the city of Los Angeles is not the same face of the city of Long Beach, where we have a larger API population. But the number of API folks that are in our programs and on the job site reflect what the city of Long Beach looks like, because it reflects the community. So you're saying you're giving greater access. The other thing that we're always really encouraging of is, again, the when you don't break it down so much. So like one of the things is there's a lot of interest and should be in anti-recidivism. But we've also had bills that are so needle in a haystack with the funding that we can't get a cohort in that one little needle in a haystack, but we could do so much if the definition was broader. So it's just, and you're doing so much work trying to get your tiny group. So that's why I really think intermediary is great. We lost like 8 years ago, our state lost DOT, Department of Transportation grant, because they gave it to our state Department of Transportation agency, not our workforce agency. And our state Department of Transportation was saying things like, we need this percentage of Asian women cement masons in this county. And we're like, I don't know how to do that. I can't do that, but I can certainly give more access. So the more flexibility and because everybody does want their specific focus, that we could focus on so many people if we have a little more definition of community as opposed to different segments of community.
Absolutely. And I think one of those things that makes that successful for intermediaries is that when, again, being able to show proof of concept, right? And so to be able to receive funding to address this, I always say in the funding community, especially around private funding, is that the problems that you're trying to address at the state level were created by legislation. So so for a private funder, we're trying to work around this, hear what the restrictions are and calling it what it is. But then we also look to really looking at the workforce development boards as funding partners. In every community that we look at, right, typically the workforce board is the largest funder of workforce activities in that market. So how do you look to leverage, right, what they're doing, use that in terms of being able to co-invest funds, that they have to help bring in funds, whether it's federal dollars, whether it's private foundation dollars, corporate dollars, but looking at that workforce board as a funding partner, right? Yeah. To co-write on some grants and submit those kinds of things. I think that also works brilliantly. If you can get those relationships solid with workforce boards as funding partners from an intermediary standpoint, I think that's just golden.
Yeah, I totally agree. And something that Annie said too on the boundaries, like that's what I think is the best about our organization is we don't have those kind of boundaries. It doesn't matter which side of the street you live on for us to serve you or work with you. And, and if employer is wherever, it doesn't really matter. But Jerry, you're exactly right. We want to align and leverage different resources to do what makes sense. And as Annie mentioned, with the different project labor agreements and, when I first started, 26 years ago at WRTP. They say, what's your job? I'm like, implementing common sense in a system that lost it. You can't put project labor agreements together with requirements that don't make sense. And you can't put them together with requirements that don't make sense, that don't have partners and investors that will help fulfill those kind of things. So let me go to some of the questions that we have here. And I think COVID really hit us where it really accelerated WRTP's big steps, use of technology. So being able to enroll online and attend a training or an assessment or whatever, but it really helped reach out in a different way. And we're using technology. And I think COVID hit females much harder than males in a lot of different ways. Sometimes because they're caregivers and daycare stopped and high school stopped and grade school stopped. And sometimes it was just because they lacked the skills in some of the workplaces where they had to keep the most skilled people, which weren't always the diverse people. So how have you used technology, especially recently, I guess I can go to Mallory. Did you have some technology things, or Annie, did you want to talk technology and if you've used that?
Go ahead, Mallory.
Oh, I'm sorry. Could you repeat that?
Were you able to use technology in your training or in some of the outreach? Was anything different than face-to-face for your apprenticeship?
Yes, my apprenticeship, actually, we got to use a local high school and in their shop, they actually had CNC machines. So I got some hands-on, experience, which really helped when I showed up on the work, floor. So that was a really cool key of my apprenticeship.
Awesome. And Annie, have you used technology to outreach or to recruit more people in?
We are starting to now, as you know. We still have unions that you can only fax things to. So we are still tapped to technology, but which is probably why we don't have people younger in the trades. But we are in the process of exploring all of that, and we're tackling that really head on with this new project starting this summer, because part of the platform is to have videos on TikTok that follow younger apprentices around to show what they're doing and to really access younger folks. So it has been a struggle. We did not, and our council did not believe that construction was an online training type of a program. So we did not offer our program over COVID unless it could be very socially distanced. And so we've only had a trickle of graduates, which actually has created a negative effect on our industry, because our industry didn't stop. So now that we are going back into training, we are trying to recruit through our website, through everybody's website, through schools. We're doing online outreach everywhere because our trades need first years. They missed a year of recruiting first years, and we need to keep up with our amount of work in our region, at least 3,000 new apprentices a year. And so we are really behind the 8 ball. So now is actually a great time for people to make the transition if they're interested. We've reached out to our other union partners, and we're doing virtual recruitment events. Our other union partners that have been really adversely affected by COVID, such as hospitality and the like, and we're doing recruitment to friends and families of those individuals who have been laid off and again affected by this. So, but we need to do a better job of using technology.
Well, and so from an investment standpoint, sometimes it's very difficult to get capital investment of technology for programs like ours. As Jerry mentioned, you can, we like to target a WIOA fund to pay for the training and, philanthropic funds to kind of fill in the missing pieces. And, but it's really hard to get an investment in capital equipment or technology types of things.
I got very creative with greenhouse gas funds to get
Well, and I had a teacher at our local community college basically say, Randy, is there anything you guys can do to help our students? Because we're doing a lot of this on Zoom and we're having all these courses and people are using their phones and they're trying to develop and type documents on their phones. And so we looked into some, like, could we just get them a Chromebook or something so that our current apprentices could maintain distance learning or, those kinds of things. And so far they're like, it's kind of an uncomfortable thing to pay for. So I guess I'll throw this over to Jerry. Like, Jerry, if an organization or an intermediary was trying to get more funds to increase their capacity in technology at their host organization or their training institution, or just for their apprentices or apprentice wannabes, where would you suggest we look?
Well, I would first look at the folks that are obviously funding workforce, credentialing, education, right? We have had partners that have, obviously used Zoom and Google Chat text messaging services to stay engaged with their folks. They've been able to use DocuSign, right, to get paperwork done for programs and things like that. But I think, and it really hit last spring, obviously when it hit everybody with COVID, but when we started thinking about a little different but summer youth virtual employment, right? It was like, oh, what happens across the country to all these summer youth programs now that are doing that? Lots of things went virtual. So funders that were funding things like that realized that they had an opportunity, and they did invest in support for technology, whether it was the actual build out of virtual platforms to be able to house the programming, whether it was support for the technology, Chromebooks and mobile hotspots, things like that. And then being able to look at that and leverage what was available from community. So whether it was community grant development funds that came through COVID, in addition to philanthropic funds, to be able to find that. And again, it's about making sure you have the right kinds of partnerships. And again, with your workforce boards, there are workforce boards through our membership that we're doing virtual job fairs, drive-through job fairs, and virtual training programs, of course, across the board. So from a funding standpoint, you look to where they're already funding the work, understanding that there has to be a shift. Like, everybody had to shift and adjust, but now it's not just about, and again, that goes about to an equity conversation, right? Oh, we're all just gonna start working from home. Well, those of us that can, that have dedicated office space like this, that have computers, that have strong Wi-Fi, right? And one of the things, again, that was talked about in some of the discussions over the last year has been around what does it look like? And so are we as intermediaries, workforce boards, the workforce ecosystem, how do we then collectively then go to a large funder and our city government and our county government and say that we need to collectively fund buses to be in neighborhoods for Wi-Fi, for our kids to have access to that for education, as well as folks to be able to go to work, do virtual training programs for our students at the tech colleges and universities that are all at home. So go to where folks are already had traditionally funded workforce development, educational attainment, credentialing, those kinds of things, and make the case for why, right, we need to support. Yeah, we can't, you gave us funding last year to put people in a classroom training, right? That's not happening. But what we need the dollars for now, we can do this via Zoom, but now we need to make sure that those same folks who we're serving have the tools they need to do that. And those are computers and Wi-Fi hotspots and all of those things.
Awesome. Yeah, we just wrapped up a really cool pilot project on really focusing on people with learning disabilities and looking at ways where competencies can be measured without a paper pencil test. And so using the phone and videos, and basically they were like, I know I can do this and let me show you, and making little videos. Especially younger people, they just really latched onto that. And they had phones, but what they didn't have was access to Wi-Fi, or they didn't have, a computer to type something on. But I really would love to thank all of the panelists. You guys have done a wonderful job. I think this was a real nice kind of start of what we wanted to get at for this panel. And is there any closing comments that anybody would like to make?
I would just, sorry, Randy, there's one question about, that I still see on that's about the high school.
Go for it.
Outreach. And I'd love to hear Mallory's take on it too. I will say that we, in California, have been really working to change the narrative that college is the only way. And we're finally, after the last 10 years of advocating that, that apprenticeship and hands-on education is as good as or better than for the right person. We have finally started changing that narrative. We have our programs in high schools, and I worked with our California Universities of California system to have our curriculum, the MC3 curriculum, go through the AP accreditation so that it actually gives advanced college placement credit for high school students, so that you can see that this hands-on technical education is not a less than way to learn AP math. It's not a less than way to learn reading and writing when you're doing proposal, mock proposals and things. And so that started to change the conversation. Also, as student, it's getting more expensive. Students are dropping out. We're just not, what we've realized that we've been finding in folks in their late 20s who are coming back who are finding us then, is they may not have dropped out and had their 10 years of not knowing what they wanted to do if they had had an educational system that was more kinesthetic and hands-on learning. They may not have gotten bored and dropped. So, it's really key that we have these conversations and we start to change. It's really been, for parents and school counselors, it's been the hardest kind of population to move and to sway. But when they start to see their friends' kids have, 6 figures worth of debt for, a literature degree, that's going to be hard. That they're like, well, maybe my son, who never grew out of really liking big trucks, maybe the operating engineers is the way he should go. So.
Cool.
Yeah, I did start with manufacturing courses at college, and I could not follow through with it. It was not what I was really interested in. I wanted a hands-on job, with hands-on instruction. So I can definitely relate to that. And college was not for me, but I earned my college credits and I have a great transcript and I got to work at the same time. It turned out awesome for me.
How would you, sorry, no, I'm asking, how would you recruit you again?
Oh, I just, I think, I know it sounds a little old school, but posters, start talking about it. Maybe, have online web seminars, I just think that there was just such a lack of awareness when I was in high school. Nobody had approached my high school and explained what an apprenticeship was about, or that you could work and, go to school at the same time to earn college credits. I just didn't hear about it. So I think that more people need to be talking about it.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like it's one of the only trainings and schools you can go to that you don't have to pay for. Anything closing, Jerry?
No, I don't really have anything. I just know that we just want to be creative as possible when you're thinking about your funding and how it aligns, how your program aligns with the ideas of what's out there and what folks want to look at it through a lens of equity. Think about those workforce development board as funding partners. I'll certainly be going later on when we leave here into the workforce development partnership breakout session. And, you know, again, folks can reach out to me if they have any questions.
Okay, and just as I really would love this panel, and if you wouldn't mind sharing again who you are and where you work for, and then maybe we can just put in some contact information in the chat so that if people want to reach out to you or if they have questions, they can do that.
Absolutely.
Sure. So we're putting it in the chat.
Sure. I guess that'll work perfect. And so I want to thank you again for a really great discussion. And I think we're going to move right on into the next session that we're going to be working on in today's schedule. So I'm going to just hand it off to Lindsay, and she's going to be ready to introduce our next keynote speaker.
All right, thank you, Randy. That was fantastic, that panel. I learned so much. And thank you all for joining us for this important conversation today. My name is Lindsay Bloomer. I'm the CEO and president at WRTP, Wisconsin Regional Training Partnership, and Big Step here in Wisconsin. During our time coordinating the WANTO program here at WRTP Big Step, we've found tremendous collaborators who have quickly become trusted friends in our mission to assist and empower women to enter apprenticeships and non-traditional occupations, which will power our economy far into the future. The teams and individuals you meet today have worked tirelessly to empower women to try new career pathways and have strategically worked with employers, unions, and partners to create environments where women and women of color are welcome, respected, and treated as equals. We all know that women will play a critical role in apprenticeship and skilled trades as our demographics shift in the next few years. The challenge we all face, all of us, is not only creating pathways for women, but demonstrating how those pathways are a reality for girls currently in schools across the country, like Mallory Martindale, one of our panelists this morning, mentioned. We all own a piece of mentorship, hands-on experience, guidance, and representation for our nation's emerging leaders in middle and high schools and out-of-school youth as well. These are not emerging women leaders. These are emerging leaders, because it's my belief, and I hope yours too, that in the very near future, our workforce leadership is not modified by our biological sex, our race, or our gender identity, but truly by our skills and our abilities. That our work in the skilled trades and many other much needed and much respected occupations are no longer labeled non-traditional for anyone, because it becomes commonplace to see everyone, people who look like me and you, represented in them. That this good work we've started as a collaborative continues to gain momentum and thrive on innovation far into the future. With that being said, it is my great pleasure to introduce Stephanie Bloomingdale. She has over 20 years of experience in labor as an organizer, negotiator, trainer, and activist, and is currently the first woman president of the Wisconsin State AFL-CIO. Previously, she served as Director of Public Policy for the Wisconsin Federation of Nurses and Health Professions, AFT, where she played a key role in strengthening the voices of nurses and healthcare workers. Stephanie is known as a tough negotiator and has a statewide reputation for managing effective voter mobilization campaigns and holding our elected officials accountable. She is committed to the ideals of organized labor and the power of collective action to create a strong middle class. She is dedicated to building grassroots, member-driven campaigns that advocate for social and economic justice for everyone. Please join me in welcoming Stephanie Bloomingdale.
All right, well, really nice to see all of you. Again, my name is Stephanie Bloomingdale. I'm the president of the Wisconsin AFL-CIO, and I'm also a board member of the Wisconsin Regional Training Program. And it is really wonderful to welcome our new CEO, Lindsay Bloomer, to this role that she serves in. And of course, Randy Berth, who's the organizer of this conference, along with Stephanie Moreno, and all the great work that they've done to put this conference together and to also really build the Wisconsin Regional Training Partnership and big step here in Wisconsin, and expanding that those roles all across the country. So I grew up in a union household. My mom was a union nurse, and so I know firsthand the importance of unions in building strong families and strong paychecks for working women. And today, 42% of working women in the United States are the sole breadwinners for their families. So think about that. 42% of women are the ones who are the sole person that is bringing home money to support their families. Yet women are close to 2/3 of all of the people that are minimum wage workers. 2/3 of them are women. So women of every race are paid less than men in the same positions. And so this pay gap is something that we're part of the reason that you're coming together in this space today to discuss how can we as women, as labor people, as people that care about our communities, what can we do to bring more women into apprenticeship programs and into non-traditional roles in the workplace. So that is what our mission is here today, because we know that the problem is that women are making less money than men are. Women are not in the same jobs that men are. Many of them who have higher pay in those jobs. So there's a gap. There's a gap, and we need to figure out how to fill that gap. So what we can do, and what is the solution? Well, the solution is to have high quality apprenticeships and to also have good unions, good strong unions for women, because we know that when women are in unions, women are going to make better pay. When anyone is in a union, they're going to have better pay and better working conditions and better benefits, whether they be men, women, people of color. So we know that the key to higher wages, the key to a more sustainable middle class is strong unions. So when we have, when we know that when we join together and collectively bargain, we're all better off. And individuals working in safer working conditions are an essential underpinning to creating more prosperous families and stronger communities. So one of the things, and you probably maybe talked about these statistics, but among full-time workers age 16 or older, women represented by labor unions earn an average of $212 or 30% more per week than women in non-union jobs. So it's hard to argue with those facts. Women who are in unions make more money. And union memberships makes a huge difference from women when it comes to health care coverage. 76% of union women have health care coverage compared to 51% of non-union women with coverage. And then you talk about retirement security. Women with unions are more likely to have pension plans, 74% compared to non-union women at 42%. But how do we get there? How do we get there? A little over a year ago, in pre-pandemic times, women outnumbered men in the U.S. workforce. But in the last 12 months, we've seen women and people of color hit hardest by the pandemic. In December of 2020, nearly all the jobs lost were held by women. Through so many challenges, the tremendous loss of life and the loss of jobs, juggling childcare and education responsibilities along with work responsibilities, women are carrying some of the heaviest burdens unleashed by this pandemic. And we all know this, either we know it firsthand or we know it through talking with our women colleagues. But it has been, this pandemic is, really, it's hard to compare anybody's hurt versus the next person because everyone has their own personal story of how the pandemic has affected them, their families, the people that they love. And clearly, the pandemic has touched all of us. But it is important at this time, and really hopefully this time where we're coming out of the pandemic, we have vaccines that are rolling out quickly, and we're seeing really light at the end of this tunnel. But it's important to analyze what happened during this crisis. And one of the crises that happened was with women. So not only were many women, especially in jobs in the service sector with entertainment, if it's service sector, hotels, hospitality, restaurants, those jobs were hit very, very hard. And also the public facing, many women are in public facing jobs. And so, not to say that their male counterparts were also affected, but traditionally a lot of the childcare falls to women. So coming home and having to educate the kids as well. Not that I'm doing much educating. I've got an 18-year-old, and just before this program, I got a call from school saying he wasn't at the class. So what do I know? Because when I left, he was on the Zoom. So it's troubled. It's very difficult for the kids trying to go to school as well right here. But as a result, the women's and even if you look at the women's part in the labor force, hit a 33-year low in January of 2021. And that is a backslide in 1 year for the gains women made in the workforce over decades and generations. And really, thinking about the pandemic and thinking about women's role in it really reminds me of Mother Jones. And what did she say? She said, when it comes to a fight, don't be ladylike. And that was Mother Jones. And it really is about being able to engage in that collective fight and to really understand what is at stake. And thinking about Mother Jones, she lost her entire family due to the yellow fever pandemic in the late 1800s. And she then turned her energy and her hurt and her pain to organizing workers in the mines. And her legacy lives on with us today because she was a hellraiser. And she really understood that without workers coming together, we cannot have a fair economy and we cannot have fairness in our society. And so what she did really reflects on our mission today, each and every day. We think about the our movement, our AFL-CIO. We have 6.5 million women in the AFL-CIO. Union membership is up over 45%. But still we have the problem that we have to solve. And how do we do that? We do that by organizing. We do that by building strong organizations like the Wisconsin Regional Training Partnership. And we do that by electing pro-worker politicians. And we do that by passing the PRO Act, which is up. And, you know, thinking about the Wisconsin Regional Training Partnership and the work that you all do, thinking about apprenticeship programs and how important that is for young women and girls that are deciding what they're going to do for their career. And we in Wisconsin are really taking a hard look at how we can improve our apprenticeship programs and really revise them to start younger. Because a lot of times girls are thinking about what is going to be their career path when they're in the 8th or 9th grade. And that is the time that we need to be introducing non-traditional jobs for women, whether that is women, joining into the building trades or manufacturing, or even into areas and spaces like cybersecurity and IT. These are things that we should intentionally be introducing to girls in their younger ages. And we know that our apprenticeship programs are so highly developed and so good in our building trades, and also really starting to grow in our manufacturing sector. So this is an opportunity to really reskill our workforce and include women in that. We have a model that really needs to be changed, because so many of our kids go into high school and they say, okay, well, good, you're on your own. But we should be starting earlier to working with employers, to working with government and labor to really figure out what is the pathway that's going to help everyone to build a stronger economy and to make sure that workers have a large role in that. And that, I believe, is a stronger and more early or implemented apprenticeship program. So, I know that you've talked about WRTP as you've gone through this program, but really the unique relationship that WRTP brings is working with labor unions, working with employers, and working with the state government, also with the federal government, to put together the programs to give the skills needed to both women and men to get a foot into those apprenticeship programs and to take part in the industries that are so important and needed for Wisconsin workers. And we have so many great new programs. I know that we have Kyla Engelke from the Empower Her program, who I believe is on this program on the Zoom today. But she's done a great job by encouraging women to take a path into these non-traditional roles for the building trades and manufacturing, and to reach out and really grow the membership. Union networks also support women. The virtual lean-in circles for union tradeswomen program, new membership and retention programs developed for and by tradeswomen, both with the National AFL-CIO and also with the Building Trades, North America Building Trades Union. Bottom line, we need to invest and grow the community-based apprenticeship centers like the Wisconsin Regional Training Partnership that make these connections happen, that bring the parties together for the best outcomes and streamline the resources. And we all need, all of us working together to rebuild our economy in the wake of the devastating coronavirus. Bringing employers and unions together to address and overcome the challenges our industries face is the heart of our goals and everything that we do, and it is the path to a fairer and more prosperous world for us all. So thank you for all of your hard work that you're putting into really growing the role of women in non-traditional areas, and that we know that this is the path to a better life for women, for men, for families, and for our communities. So hats off to all of you, and solidarity, everyone. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Stephanie, and thank you for taking the time to be with us, because, you know, as I said earlier, you can't be one if you can't see one. And, you know, when I started and I had my Rosie the Riveter friend, we did not think a woman could be the state Fed president at all. It was, manufacturing was a man's world and the unions were a man's world. And you really are a leader that we can be proud of, or that I'm proud of, and actually very excited that you're, you know, maintaining the relationship with WRTP Big Step and on our board of directors. But more than that, there are very few women that are at a higher level in the labor movement as you. And so thank you very much for being here and being you. Very honored. Moving on, you know, yesterday I was on a different presentation, and Secretary Treasurer Liz Schuler from the National AFL-CIO, also a woman in a high leadership position, you know, mentioned the WRTP Big Step as one of the pioneers of some of these kinds of intermediary work in our Industrial Manufacturing Commission Apprenticeship Program that was developed here. And looking at how many ways can we look at different ways to recruit, different business practices to encourage, different programs like that kind of an apprenticeship that's more open for women. How do we do more of this and look at it from that perspective? So I think what we're going to do now is we have two different breakout rooms. And we're going to end this session for the whole group, and you're invited to choose between one of the two breakout rooms. And then after that, we're going to have a networking session. But when I was back in the shop, and at one point I was ready to quit, I'm like, I should have stayed in nursing. And yes, I had my Rosie the Riveter friend, but there was also a man who came over one day that I was ready to quit. And he basically said, you know, they were testing me and they wanted to make sure I did all right. And I ended up saving and staying at a career that I really loved and wanted for a long time. And when you're the only person like you in a workplace, that's kind of hard. But I got to thinking, you know, there are good people and not so good people in every workplace. And so if we're looking at trying to help people in non-traditional occupations, how do we look at a workplace and make sure there is a good connection between someone that works there that wants to be helpful, someone that can be a mentor, someone that's different than a trainer or a boss, or, you know, how can we make sure workplaces are more open and friendly towards women or people of color if they are white male, you know, predominantly white male dominated industries? So a couple of things that we've developed over the years is mentoring. So one of our breakout rooms is going to be about discussing and creating opportunities for women for mentorship within their organizations, as well as development of women's committees within the trades. Because when I look at mentoring, I look at internal mentoring at the workplace. I look at external mentoring, which is, you know, finding people like you that you can talk to or debrief about the way. And then there's industry mentoring, as in some industries are actually making sure that every new apprentice has a friend on day one. That's not their boss, that's not their supervisor, but you need people to talk to. And sometimes, you know, especially like if you're a mom and you're trying to balance, you know, childcare that's 9 to 5 when your schedule is 6 to 2, you know, I mean, it's how do you look at these and work on these kinds of things? So in our breakout room, number 1, Tracy, Stephanie Moreno is going to facilitate with a group on women for the mentorship. Breakout room 2 with Tracy Cary will be facilitating a discussion at the workforce board level on finding resources for women and looking into the benefits of promoting women in non-traditional occupations and apprenticeships. So I believe you can see on your screen, you'll be able to click so that you'll pull up the web page and you'll see the links as soon as we end what I'm saying right here. And so one link is, as I mentioned, for the mentorship. One link is for the non-traditional or the workforce boards, and you'll be able to click on the breakout room button. And so thank you for those that are going to be leaving now, and thank you, and I hope there's a good conversation for those in the breakout sessions.
Right, well, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start off by just asking that as we're in the room, I don't believe that everybody has been officially muted. So if you could go ahead and make sure that you're muted. And then if you wanted to ask a question during the conversation, please go ahead and put it into the chat area. And we will be watching the chat for questions as they come up. I am so excited about this conversation today. This is the opportunity for us to really dig into the work that's happening at one of our partner boards in the Kansas City area. And so to get started here, my name is Tracy Cary. I'm the Executive Director of Midwest Urban Strategies. And I think we've had a great opportunity to learn more about the opportunities in front of us to empower women in non-traditional occupations and help them get into and make it through apprenticeship programs, as we've been talking with a variety of different players in this space this morning. What we're going to talk about today is how that process works in the Kansas City area. The Workforce Development Board in the Kansas City, Missouri area is called Full Employment Council. And I am delighted today to be joined by Rohina Behrman. I probably just slaughtered your last name, Ro. I apologize for that.
Perfect.
She has been for the last 18 years serving at Full Employment Council as the Director of Employer Development and Special Projects. And her role is really to work with employers and startups from and Fortune 500 companies in a variety of industries to develop and retain key resources and support the workforce needs of the employers in the Kansas City area. The target industries that she focuses on for those activities include healthcare, advanced manufacturing, information technology, finance, and warehouse and logistics. So Ro is bringing the perspective of the Full Employment Council, which is that local workforce board, and their role as really the convener and intermediary that brings together the resources to make the programming possible with her local employer and training partner networks. Along with Rohina today, I have Trisha Pepper. She's the manager of recruitment and employment at John Knox Village in Lee's Summit, Missouri. The village is a life plan community that provides care and services to older adults. And Trisha is responsible for village-wide recruitment and employment activities. During her 13 years at the Village, Tricia has been instrumental in establishing multiple programs and services, such as the Nursing Pathways Tuition Assistance Education Program, that's a mouthful, that aids in increasing the satisfaction and retention of associates throughout the organization. Next, joining us is Lynette Wheeler from Truman Medical Center, Lakewood. She's the Chief Operating Officer there, and she's accountable for the day-to-day operations and administration for Lakewood and for the Jackson County Health Department. She has consistently taken a leadership role in driving development of grant-funded training programs for CNAs. These collaborative efforts between educational programs, community organizations, and TMC Lakewood target workforce needs and employment opportunities in core communities in eastern Jackson County, Missouri. And rounding us out is our educational partner here. Scott Boyce has worked in adult education since 1997 and has been with University of Central Missouri since 2004. He directs a program at the university called Workforce Central, which focuses on innovative workforce development strategies, partnerships, and certificate programs in high growth, in-demand occupations that do not require a degree in order to succeed. Now, you might wonder why we convened this particular group of folks, and we're here to talk about why we did that. The work that has been happening through Full Employment Council, we refer to that oftentimes as just-in-time training. It's a model or approach to training that looks at the needs currently of employers in a given industry and brings together the resources of the public system, philanthropy, corporate donations, and of the institution itself to address the challenges or barriers to bringing in a pipeline of workers along the career pathway. And so the folks at the Full Employment Council have convened this group of employers and educators to respond to a need in their local area. And I'm going to hand it over to Ro to get us started with sort of a framing of what this initiative looks like.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you for those introductions. It's been an amazing conference. We've been listening in all morning. So yes, so our partnership with our partners that are here present today really started because there was a need for developing a really wraparound service for individuals that reside in the counties that we serve in the Kansas City region. So we work with the hospital associations, both Missouri and Kansas. There are intermediaries in the healthcare arena. So what we did is we did a survey and decided that the employers needed to be at the center of anything that we did, and they needed to have a voice in how we developed our training and employment programs. So the individuals that you see that are joining me this morning have done this over many years, and they'll give you their own views on how we've worked. But we've been very fortunate because we do meet regularly, and we develop training and employment strategies and programs that support the needs of not just this employer group, but also within our region of all the healthcare employers. So we streamline a lot of content. We do, when there's a need for a training, for instance, of workforce, if we're lacking it, or if there needs to be consistency in what we deliver and deliver workforce, then we will bring individuals to the table, such as our employer partners, and they dictate the curriculum. So they tell us what needs to be the content of that curriculum. And then individuals like Scott, he comes in and he makes the magic, so then he creates the curriculum and it is delivered, but everybody is in concert with each other. Our team meets regularly. I think we interface every week or every other week based on this whole group meets together on Zoom, or we used to do it in person, but now it's via Zoom to ensure that the individuals coming into the training, most are women in healthcare, so still, we want to make sure that they succeed in not only getting their certifications, but beyond that, once they get on the job, that there is a support system that we put in place as a group that supports them beyond the classroom training, that they go into the clinicals, that they go into apprenticeship. We have our own Department of Labor approved apprenticeship program here. We're the intermediary, and we make sure that everything is kind of prescribed for the individual so that they can succeed long term. But for our employer partners, that provides consistency of training specific to their needs, but it's very customized, as well as it provides retention, safety, other things. So that's how this came to be. We do also have adjunct professors that are hired from the industry by the school that deliver the curriculum, which is a really great model. And we'll come back to discussing some of the other things that we do. So I'll let the others talk. Thank you.
Great. I think it would be really helpful at this point if maybe Lynette, you could kind of frame up from your perspective, and then Tricia from your perspective, why you wanted to work with the Full Employment Council to address the needs that you had identified in terms of the talent pipeline that you knew you needed, and how you formed this. And then we'll circle back to Scott to talk about how we rounded that out with the development of the training program that became a part of that apprenticeship model that you guys have been implementing. So Lynette, let's get started with you.
Thank you, Tracy. We started clear back in 2015. It was a small economic development group out of Independence and Missouri, and we were discussing how can we develop a workforce and what types of work can we implement. And I talked about the need for needing CNAs. And when we were researching it, we discovered that a lot of people wanted to join the group, but couldn't afford all the other equipment that goes with it. And there were a lot of issues that we had to address, from travel to babysitting to how to build a resume, how to interview. And Rowena and her team immediately jumped in and started to help us with this, and has been a partner with us ever since. They've been great developing the process we use, supporting you. You not only have to support the student while they're attending their CNA program, there's a lot of socioeconomic issues that you have to deal with while they're in school. And so as a team, we had to address all those issues. And again, Full Employment Council was right there with us, addressing those needs and supporting the success of the group. And we did 5 groups that year, and it spilled into 2016. Then we continued our partnership. And I know we wouldn't be able to do what we do without Full Employment Council. And they're very supportive and helping us identify people who want to be CNAs or CMTs or whatever the case may be. We've used Full Employment Council for other areas like food and nutrition, our environmental services. We've been partners with them. We expanded that with them because they're so good at what they do.
Thanks, Lynette. I appreciate that. I have to remember to unmute myself all the time here. So one of the things that I have been most inspired by as I've learned more about the work that you guys are all engaged in is the focus that you've placed on underrepresented women in this healthcare industry. And so by that, what I mean is that oftentimes, we understand that CNAs are by and large women. But the folks who don't have access to that career pathway are those very low income women who don't have the social and economic supports that they need in order to secure the credentials and take the time to complete the coursework necessary so that they can enter into that profession and then see themselves along a career pathway so that if they want to move up, there is room for them to move into new roles within the industry. One of the things that this team has been able to do is to build out a model that allows for those women who are really a very vulnerable population and very disenfranchised to connect into the resources that they need in order to successfully enter, complete, and get retained in their employment and career pathway in the healthcare industry. And it's these sorts of services that really do transform that experience for that specific population of women who otherwise very much struggle with making it in any sort of industry, including healthcare. So I think that that's one of the things that's been really inspiring to me. And I know that there's a lot of work that went on behind the scenes. And Tricia, I'd like you to talk a little bit about how you guys work together to develop both the supportive services as well as the educational platform and some of the things that you've learned along the way that were necessary to help really shore up the resources for those women.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Tracy. I very much could probably repeat many of the things that Lynette said and shared along the way. I've had an opportunity to work with Rowena and the Full Employment Council for certainly longer than my 13 years with John Knox Village, and so it's always been a really natural partnership connection. Really a two-way street. And so we've worked on different initiatives over the years, but very intentionally, probably starting back in about 2014, those of us at John Knox Village began having conversations about the thing that is not a secret, the shortage of CNAs in the healthcare industry. And, what could we do about that? And so internally having those discussions, we then had discussions with some other partners, with some educational partners, and started really just kind of brainstorming about how could we fill that need? How could we grow our own? And so we started a process of creating what is our Pathways programming. And it just naturally kind of dovetailed with some initiatives that Rowena and I were discussing. And so while we were moving along a path internally, I was working with Rowena and with a gentleman, Roy, at the Department of Labor Office of Apprenticeship, and we developed the Cna Apprenticeship Model. And that, I believe we launched that in 2015. That was the first one in this area. And we expanded on that eventually with CMT Apprenticeship Model as well. And really, it's a two-way street between us and Full Employment Council. And what I mean by that is, if we have a need, then I can approach Full Employment Council and say, this is what my need is. So in this case, we need CNAs, and so we need to educate CNAs. So how can we accomplish that? And what are those options? Or sometimes they're approaching me and saying, hey, we have this opportunity, or what do you think about this? Or do you have this need? And so there's very much a two-way street there. The Full Employment Council also is wonderful at listening to us about ways to help those individuals that are interested in becoming CNAs or whatever that target position is, with things like, I think Lynette touched on, resume preparation, preparations on how to complete an interview, soft skills, just some of the basics that sometimes we take for granted. And then there's all kinds of other supportive services along the way throughout the training program and after. Sometimes these folks, they need assistance with transportation or childcare, or they need uniforms, things like that. And so there's just a lot of extra support with us working with the Full Employment Council through the process. Oftentimes the Full Employment Council is identifying individuals that are coming in through some of their support services, and they refer them to us. We're both kind of trying to find those people that want to become a CNA and then want to go on. It's worked very well for us in growing our workforce. We typically do about 4 CNA classes a year, sometimes more. We also try to do CMT at least once a year. We have folks that are pursuing their RN. So it's really up to that individual. If they want to be a CNA, that's fine. But if they want to be something beyond a CNA, then there's opportunities there as well. So it's just a really, really great partnership. And it's not just, obviously for us, CNA is a high priority. However, there have been opportunities to provide other types of training. We've done some things with IT and some of the other departments as well. So there's just lots of opportunity, and we're excited to continue that partnership.
Thank you, Tricia. I want to go now to Scott and learn a little bit more about the educational side of the partnership. And we've talked recently about some of the innovative ways that you guys have worked together to bring resources to students to help them continue their education even through COVID. And so if you could talk a little bit about, the way that you have worked with these employers and with the Workforce Board to develop the training programs that are responsive to the employer's needs and meeting students where they are as well, that would be great.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tracy. Hello, everybody. As was mentioned earlier, the Full Employment Council has really been the hub in this wheel to make these projects happen. I've been working with them since about 2005, and honestly, if they're involved in a project, there's innovation going on somewhere. So I don't know if it's in their DNA or it's in their org structure or what over there, but they're constantly doing something different if the situation calls for it. So we're always excited to be involved in these kinds of projects because of the impact it has at the community level. And this particular project, and as Tricia mentioned, I might touch on some of the things that have already been mentioned, but in this particular project, I wanted to point out several examples of innovation that were either requested by the Full Employment Council or by the employers that are here in this group with us, either Truman Medical Center or John Knox Village. So one of the things is that we did work with the individual employer partners to make sure that the curriculum for our CNA program was on target. There were, for this particular project, we did make some modifications to it. One of the things we did was we added a mental health concentration that is a growing need, at least in the Missouri region, probably in the nation, but I only focus on Missouri, so forgive me. But helping make sure that, custom aspects of the curriculum were included in the certificate program to better make folks coming out of the program employable and promotable. We also did work with the employer partners to help some of their employees become adjunct faculty in our system so that they were able to help with the real world delivery of the skills needed in these programs, primarily on the clinical supervision side, but which is obviously a very, very key component of this program. One of the other things I wanted to point out was that because of COVID, and again, I focus on Missouri, I don't know if this is the way in other parts of the country, but long-term care facilities were no longer able to host clinical experiences for students going through CNA programs. And that was for patient safety, right? We were trying to make sure that nobody required for health and care of the individuals in the facilities were in the facilities, possibly, passing, contagious diseases. So that potentially was a showstopper, right, for CNA programs, because clinical experience is an absolute requirement to meet state guidelines, as well as, lifting them up to the point where they can create a safe and healthy environment for the patients they serve. So to kind of help overcome that huge and new barrier, the Full Employment Council and the employers worked a way where they were able to pre-screen and pre-hire individuals before they came into our training program, so that they were then qualified after the lecture sections to go into the clinical experience at those home employer sites. And that was a huge game changer, and really an important part of this project, because it allowed us to continue developing CNAs as a group, and it also allowed us to make sure that we were jointly paying attention to patient safety in the facilities. One of the other things I wanted to point out was that also because of the COVID changes, we weren't always able to have a group or a cohort of students go to one clinical site, and the employers that are here today both stepped up and helped with clinical supervision, and did that in an in-kind fashion when the situation required for it. So very high level of employer involvement to get these projects to remain successful through COVID in areas that as an education institution, we just can't by ourselves, cover. And I think it was also mentioned about the Cna Career Path, right? So we're trying to put individuals as a group, we're trying to put individuals into a career path, right? So they can start off as a certified nursing assistant. They can certainly grow into certified med techs, licensed practical nurses, registered nurses, and beyond, as well as there's lateral moves that they can make as well. But there's a lot of opportunities once somebody gets their foot in the door into this career path. The only other thing I think I would mention is that because of the way the Full Employment Council and the employers innovated in this program, one of the key aspects I think that was different for the students is that they were actually able to earn a paycheck while they were going through the education program, because they were part of the employer body prior to coming into the program. So that allows, as was mentioned by Tracy earlier, folks that are in really tough socioeconomic situations that can't afford to take 3 months off to go through a training program because they have, bills to pay and groceries to buy and things like that. The fact that the employers were able to, John Knox Village and Truman Medical Center were able to pay these folks while they were getting the education to come in and join their team, I think was a real game changer as well.
Thank you, Scott. And that's a perfect segue. Ro, I'm really excited to have you talk a bit about the role of Full Employment Council as the sponsor on the apprenticeship program for the project, and how important it is for the folks who are coming into that CNA program to be able to participate in an apprenticeship program, which is essentially an earn while you learn model. And for women, especially low-income women, having the ability to earn a paycheck while they are going through the process of gaining the additional knowledge and credentials and skills is a game changer. That's why apprenticeship is such a great tool for women to advance themselves professionally. So Ro, could you talk a bit about how the board functions in that role and how it coordinates with the employers to support that apprenticeship program?
Certainly. So as Tricia mentioned, we initiated our apprenticeship program in 2015. Back then, the only apprenticeship that existed in our region was construction. And so we did a pilot with Tricia's group at John Knox for the CNAs, because that's where attrition was happening massively. There was, people were jumping jobs for a few cents. So we wanted to see how we could make them more stable. But in the long run, our whole focus was on as an intermediary, as a sponsor of the apprenticeship program. We wanted to also work with the Department of Labor to really execute a program in the region that could sustain people but create career pathways that employers could carry with, for the next year to 6 years of the apprenticeship. So Trish was graciously working with us on the design, and we achieved a really nice program, and it provided retention, and it grew into other industries and sectors beyond that now. So the one factor that was very critical was that we created a pathways, the wage progression that was illustrated, and really for their team to recognize, and I think I heard Trish at another meeting mention that it changed the frame, the thinking of the nursing directors on how an entry level individual. So I'll let Trish talk about that, but how they bring them in and how they train them, it certainly changed things on the job for that individual as well as the staff that were training them. So our whole focus was to create a rich program that really encompass more learning on the job, and for us to work as an intermediary to make sure that they're monitored and that the training is implemented. CNAs, we've done a lot of, but we've done it in other industries and sectors too.
Thank you, Ro. So Trish, do you want to speak a bit to how the apprenticeship model has become sort of transformational and helping people to think more about career pathways and helping folks to advance along those lines and create new opportunities?
Certainly. So let me back up a little bit and maybe give some framework for the kind of the entry point into our pathways programming that leads into that apprenticeship model. We decided that we needed to bring folks on and give them an opportunity to kind of shadow and see if they were certain that they knew what they were getting into, and all before we just dove right into putting them into training. And so we actually post and recruit to fill what we call the Health Services Assistant position, or HSA position. And we have a variety of schedules for that. Again, that's helpful for some folks based on, their needs away from the job, at least initially. And so that gives an opportunity for folks to be in that position, anywhere from a couple of weeks to a couple of months. It just kind of depends on when they've kind of entered into that pathway. And, it's worked for us because we have had some folks, not many, but we've had some folks who decided after shadowing that wasn't really what they thought it was going to be a CNA. And so they took themselves out of the mix. And so in some cases, we've retained them in other capacities, and in some cases not. But that way they're learning about the work, they're in the work environment, they're earning a good wage during that time. We quickly get them into a class, and so they're paid throughout that entire training time as well. And then we immediately move them into a CNA position as soon as they've taken the exam, and so it's a pretty quick progression, actually. It's kind of helped with dovetailing what we were trying to accomplish with our Pathways program with the apprenticeship programming, and having that kind of extra mentoring over the course of a year has helped them be more successful. It helps because there's just so much more support there. Starting with me and my recruitment team, our in-house educational folks, the educational folks at UCM, Full Employment Council, they've just got support coming from all angles, really. I'm sometimes referred to as Mama Trish in helping to provide that support and that connection. And so it's really been successful for us. We've had better retention. And of course, what we started with, back in 2015, we've tweaked along the way. We've tried to tighten up some of the timelines that we have folks in, say, that HSA position. It used to be that we wanted to have them in that position for a minimum of 60 days before we would consider putting them into training. And, we've had to scale that back, and it just wasn't working. People were anxious and ready to get going with the training and that progression, because that progression is, it's an accomplishment for them. We hold a graduation. UCM graciously holds a graduation for each one of the classes. And so, that's a huge accomplishment to stand up there and receive that and have family and friends present. And it's more money. So, it's something that's really, really working well for us.
That's great, Trish. Thank you so much. I want to go to Lynette, and I want to hear a little bit from you about how TMC has benefited from this model and from the apprenticeship program. How has that impacted your organization?
Well, as Tricia mentioned, I've been a nurse for 45 years, and I never expected that needing and finding CNAs would be one of the issues I'm working on as the Chief Operating Officer. But finding CNAs to work, we have a 188 licensed bed facility at Lakewood. It's a struggle. And so when we started partnering with Full Employment Council, they not only helped us find candidates, but again, as we said, helped the whole dynamic, the whole development of the program. And we couldn't have done it without them to fill all of our positions. They're very flexible. The model does, I think Trish mentioned, they try to do 4 a year. We'll do as many as we can to fill our needs. And as long as we can find candidates, we'll continue to hold classes. And as long as UCM will participate, it's the only way we can survive. So we would not have the ability to provide the care, the quality of care that we want to. I'll brag on both of us, both John Knox Village and Truman Long-Term Care Facility are 5 stars. The CMS every quarter comes out with the grade levels, and both of our programs are 5-star. And you can't do that if you don't have good staffing. And this model has helped provide and stabilize the care and the quality of care that we provide. And I think Trish mentioned it earlier as well. When you grow your own, you get and you teach what you need for your program. And their clinical is done in your environment. So they really learn what you need and your expectations, but we couldn't have done it without them. And without the partnership of both UCM and FEC.
That's fantastic, Lynette. Thank you so much. And Scott, I'm wondering, when we think about the innovative practices that Full Employment Council and this consortium have put in place and used and relied on to drive outcomes, how has that impacted your organization? What do you see as we kind of move forward as a nation, really using apprenticeship in more and more occupations?
I think personally, I think it's very exciting. I think all of us on this call probably know already that not every promising career requires a 4-year degree. My president might want to kick me in the shins if he heard me say that on this call, but I believe it's true, and I think everybody here believes it's true. There are great careers out there that don't currently require a 4-year degree or beyond. So I think as we broaden our mission to serve the community, we're the original teachers college in Missouri. We're 150 years old actually this year. As we continue even after 150 years to try and broaden our community impact, getting into areas like this is very exciting for us. One additional innovation that I didn't mention earlier, and I'm going to give credit where credit's due. I mentioned we've been working with the FEC since 2005. In 2009, Clyde McQueen, who's the CEO of the Full Employment Council, approached us and said, you know, you guys you're doing a pretty good job with these technical certificates, but we really feel like there's an area where you can enhance these programs that'll have dramatic impact. And so what he asked us to do was add what most people call a soft skills component to these certificates. I personally don't like to call them soft skills because I think generally they're very hard to find, but we did hear that need. And we built a program called Core Builders to add to all of our technical certificates. It's in its 4th generation right now. Fortunately, a year before COVID, we started moving it to an online format. So that did not have to stop as a negative side of COVID. We're able to still continue that. But that kind of helps folks coming out of our programs be a little more well-rounded. Obviously, they've got to be very good at their nursing skills. But also being good at things like teamwork and communication, bringing integrity to work, how to deal with human behavior aspects at work, self-leadership, goal setting, things like that really helps an individual be more well-rounded. And a lot of folks don't get that naturally based on their high school education or their home environment or their work environment. So we try and make sure that that's a component that not only makes the candidate more valuable coming out of the program, but really helps the employers that receive these folks have an easier time integrating them into their individual cultures.
I think that's fantastic. It's an important point, and I really like the idea of that core builder as a strategy to help really lift folks up. And I don't think it has anything to do with your level of education. I think soft skills are something that we all can improve on, and so having that built in is another really important point.
Tracy, I couldn't agree more with Scott. We don't call them soft skills. We call them essential skills, because you can't be successful in healthcare without those skills, no matter where you work. And so they're essential skills. And like he said, you're not born with them all the time, and you don't learn some of those skills at home. So it's essential. And that's what puts their program above some others, because they actually take the time to teach those core skills.
Have you guys thought about extending the opportunity to learn those skills to the docs who are serving patients?
We'd be happy to share it anywhere we were asked. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Ro, would you mind kind of rounding out the conversation? What is the benefit to an employer or a training provider in partnering with the public workforce system? And what are some of the best ways to kind of link in and get started?
I think the benefits are pretty evident, as the team is illustrating. We have a lot of resources that we have gone and brought to the area so that we can develop the best workforce that we can. Our whole focus is on not just developing programs that where people are trained and then we pray for employment opportunities. This teamwork, this collaboration that's being illustrated is very, very organic. It's we can all get on a Zoom call, and there's a lot more individuals behind us. We each have teams that come on this call, program managers, HR representatives, hiring managers. We're all on a Zoom meeting, and we make sure that each class is successful. There's a lot of collaboration and negotiating that goes on. Like, we could suggest something, and this team makes it happen. We can say, we need to increase the pay for CNAs to make, and they've made it happen. So there's been a lot of really great things that come because they provide a lot of resources as well for our job seekers, which is to take them and develop them. So it's a give and take, and we have it. So they're using it in a way that that benefits their businesses, as well as the individual is at the center of it. So it's not just about hiring somebody, but actually hiring somebody, developing them, and growing them into other careers.
So one of the things that I think is probably the most inspiring to me is that you guys have been at this working together for more than 15 years. That's a long time to stay connected and committed to, solving a problem, right? And this is one of those intractable problems that, you pull on the string and you feel like you're unraveling one part of it, and it just exposes a whole nother side of a problem that you now have to dig into. And so it's not a simple thing to just say, okay, we just need to recruit more CNAs. I think there's been a lot of learning that's happened over this process. Like, well, yeah, you do, but who's going to educate those CNAs, and what credentials do they need? And that whole thing around credentialing and licensing and state to state. So there's a lot that goes into this. And so to stay together for 15 years and stay in the fight and continue to do the work. What keeps you coming back to that table day after day after day? And Trish, I'm going to start with you, and I'm going to go up the Brady Bunch chain and just get your responses.
Sure. Well, I mean, I guess, I'm kind of hard-headed. I don't give up easily, just in general. But, I think that I think what keeps me at it and keeps me going, and working with the different partners at the table, is when we have a success. When we sometimes it's difficult, going down that path and going, oh, didn't think about that, gotta tweak this, or COVID certainly had us pivoting. But just keeping at it, and then you get a class of 10 people or whatever that is so excited and proud of that accomplishment, and you're like, this is why I'm doing this. This is why I keep at this. This is why I keep trying to find another way to do this. And then ultimately, for us, I'm always reminding even my recruitment staff, but all associates, that even if we're not at the bedside, what we do impacts the people that we serve. And so, ultimately, it's knowing that we are, as Lynette mentioned, that we are getting to those quality outcomes, that we're providing quality care. We're all about building relationships. And so in the end, it's that keeps me going.
Lynette, you're the next in my Brady Bunch chain.
Well, I am passionate about patient care. And have been, I told you, for 45 years, and I'm not done yet. So it's essential to have the right person in the right position, so they're successful, and that we can accomplish quality outcomes for all of our patients and residents. And so it's, I strive to be the best in everything. And that includes the care that we provide. So it's inherent in my nature. And I'm just dedicated to patient care, resident care.
Thanks, Lynette. Ro, how about you?
I think for us, you know, just seeing the evolution of the programs and how this team keeps growing, the minds come together and we've done this, and that, and then how can we implement something new so that it addresses the needs of that time, as well as the people. And then we leverage a lot of this into from program to program. So it's really helping a lot more people than one program, one class. So seeing that growth over the years and with our partners, you know, it's been amazing, and we're going to continue on with. You can't create things on your own, you know. So when you have great partners like this, that's where the growth and the changes come to be, and it's really addressing the needs in our region.
Scott, you want to go ahead?
Sure, a little tough to act to follow, but I think a lot of mine is very similar to Trisha's. I get a lot of reward and joy out of seeing the accomplishments, the pride in the accomplishments that these program participants enjoy at the end. As was mentioned, we try and hold graduation ceremonies for these certificate programs, which is pretty atypical, right? That's usually for a degree. But some of these individuals, many of these individuals don't have a successful academic accomplishment in their past to be proud of. And so, you know, letting them be proud, bring their family, their spouse, their kids, their mom. At these ceremonies, sometimes we see spontaneous raps, we see people singing, people hugging, crying, all kinds of just really neat human emotions that get expressed because of the pride and the hard work that was put out in these programs. I think that's the primary thing. And you can see I've got a little gray hair now. I'm probably going to need a CNA sometime in the near future. So I'm hoping to personally meet as many CNA graduates in these programs as I can over the next few years, in case I get a chance to meet one of them when I need help or a glass of ice. So, but no, I'm kidding. Primarily, it's seeing the pride in these graduates when they finish, and it's just really hard to explain how it is to witness that.
Yeah, I think that there is a lot in what you guys all shared. It's that real human commitment to improving the lives of other people and helping them to achieve their goals and their dreams. And in partnership, we can have an impact on those individual lives. And then beyond those individual lives, really the system as a whole. As we're getting ready to close out here, I just wanted to open it up and see if anybody has any specific questions. You could go ahead and put your question in the chat and we can ask it. Or if you want to just unmute yourself, we might end up in chaos, but we can give it a shot. I just wanted to see if there were any questions that anybody had for our panelists today. And it may be an indication of what a fantastic job you guys have done in covering all of the salient points here. So as we're waiting, if anybody comes in with a question, we will jump to it for sure. Any closing remarks that you'd like to make, Ro, to encourage people to continue on in this work?
I just think that, first of all, I want to thank you and MUS for this opportunity for showcasing our team. We're certainly very proud of this partnership, and we will continue doing what we need to do to make more things happen. And thank you, Tracy.
Thank you for all the work you guys are doing, Ro. I really appreciate it. We will be preparing here to transition to the networking room. There is a post in the chat that you can link on to go into the networking room. And in there, we'll have the opportunity to talk to some of the other people who were presenting in the other room, as well as some of the presenters from the first session. So we hope to see you all there. And I want to thank you for joining us and learning more about the fantastic work that's happening in Kansas City. Thank you all, and we'll see you over in the networking room. Oh, just want to let you guys know, it says it's going to begin in 10 minutes. And so if it says meeting in progress, please wait, and it will begin as soon as the breakout closes. So there we go. I thought we were at close at 12:30, but hang out, wait to get in. We'll see you there. Thanks. Bye.
So I want to welcome you today. Thank you for joining us, and I hope that you are finding this webinar interesting and informative. Like I said, I want to thank you all for coming. So we are going to be talking today about the importance of establishing women's mentorship committees or affinity groups. Women need to be able to be empowered and encouraged to seek employment opportunities they have never considered in male-dominated, non-traditional occupations. So in order for the U.S. to keep pace with the labor market needs. So today we have a group of phenomenal women, I think, who each began a women's committee or an affinity group within their trade or their company. I'm going to, let me tell you who they are. So they are Sharon Walker. She's a business representative for SMART Union Local 24. That's sheet metal, air, rail, and transportation. We have Tracy Griffiths, Human Resources Outreach Manager for Walbeck Group. And we have Kyla Engelke, who was, Stephanie Bloomingdale gave her a shout out. She's a business agent for the OPC MIA Local 599 Area 58. 558. They will give you a little more information about them, about their groups that they've started, just their journey, and then we'll hear from each and every one of them, and then we will open it up for questions, if that is okay. So I believe we have decided that today we are going to start with Sharon Walker, and then we will continue with Tracy, and then we'll go and we'll finish with Kyla. And yes, feel free to use the chat if you need to. And Sharon, I will turn it over to you.
Hey, thanks, Stephanie. Like Stephanie said, my name is Sharon Walker. I'm a 34-year member of SMART, which is sheet metal, air, rail, and transportation, Local 24. We cover Southern Ohio, the Cincinnati, Dayton, and Columbus, and South Point areas. I worked at the same manufacturing facility for 34 years. SMART Local 24 is actually a mixed local. Some of our locals are strictly manufacturing production locals. Some of them are strictly building trades construction locals, but Local 24 is a combined local. So like I said, I've been a member for 34 years on the manufacturing side, and my husband is a 33-year member on the construction side. So I sort of have an insight to both sides of how it works. Like I said, I worked in the same manufacturing facility for 31 years. In March of 2018, I was approached by our business agent and the business manager, and our production business agent at the time was moving up to the international level, and they approached me and asked me if I would be interested in running for that position. I had to think about it for a few days, and then I decided I'd go ahead and try it. I did have somebody who ran against me in the election, and I ended up winning. So I was the first elected, not only business agent, but any type of official in Local 24, the first woman elected official. So that was kind of scary at first. So that was in March of 2018. In September of 2018, I attended the SMART diversity training, where we talked about women's committees and what it took to start a women's committee. And there were representatives of the SMART International Women's Committee at the diversity training, and they kind of guided me in the direction. And when I came back from that training course, I met with our business manager and discussed starting a women's committee, and he was all for it. So that's when we started our women's committee. And like I said, our local is a combination of manufacturing, production, and construction. So the women in our women's committee are from both sides. We're trying to merge everyone into one women's committee, let the construction side see some of the things that go on the production side, the women on the production side see what goes on the construction side. And it doesn't matter if you're on the manufacturing or the construction side, all women basically face the same on the job, what do I want to say, issues. So it's just kind of a way for us to meet, get together, mentor each other, discuss some of the issues that we're having. I've also been involved with the SMART International Women's Committee. I attended the National Tradeswomen Build Nations Conference in 2019 in Minneapolis. In March of 2021, this year, I was appointed to the SMART Recruitment and Retention Council, which is a council that was formed at the international level to recruit, retain, and promote diverse groups within SMART to ensure workplace equality within our industry and to promote respect, inclusion, and safe, non-hostile work environments at all levels within SMART. That same month, March of 2021, I was also appointed to we're starting the SMART Women's Apprenticeship Mentorship Study, which is in conjunction with the University of Washington to implement a mentorship training research program aimed at providing targeted support to women and apprentices in the trade. So I've been involved with the Central Ohio Women in the Trades. I've also attended events for the National Association of Women in Construction, and I've been involved with the Women's Fund of Central Ohio. Our local 24 Women's Committee is actually working with the Women's Fund of Central Ohio and the Women's Fund of Greater Cincinnati to try to acquire grants to help new apprentices. What that grant money will go towards is like buying the tools that they need to start the apprenticeship program to get into the trade, to try to make it a little easier. What we're thinking is if we can take some of the financial responsibility off of them, they may be more likely to not only join the program, but finish the program and then stay within the trade. So that's all I've got.
Thank you. If anybody has any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, or we'll wait till everyone has done their presentations. And I'm sure you're going to get some questions. I certainly do have questions. So right now, thank you, Sharon. I am going to turn it over to Tracy. I am also going to share my screen. Can everybody see that?
No.
No. Okay, this is where I'm having my issues right now. So share my screen. Here we go. Now, how's that?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Tracy, you are on.
Awesome. If you can go to the first slide, that would be great. Hi there. Just a little bit about myself, and thank you for having me here. I've been in the industry, working in the construction industry for about 24 years now. In my last role, I did a lot of work with contractors and developed labor management relationships within the industry, developing strategies to help contractors meet their workforce needs. Now I'm working for a road building heavy highway company where I'm able to take that passion and some of the work I did before I started here and bring it inside the company. So Wallbeck Group is a heavy highway road building contractor, and we are in Wisconsin, Illinois, Minnesota, Michigan. And, you know, when you're driving and you're seeing all that wonderful construction, the woman in the screen and many other women you should see, there's a big difference on our job sites because of our company's leadership, what we believe in and how we want to grow our company. So we can't really talk about things unless we're really talking about diversity inclusion, which is such an important thing for our company. We have a mission within our company, and we have groups where we are really focusing on bringing, having a welcoming environment. We have a Woman of Wallbeck group that started about a year ago. And in that Woman of Wallbeck group, it was for internal females at our company to give them a go-to person, someone to talk to, someone to vent to. And when I say vent to, you know, I think sometimes when we talk about women in the industry, we hear about the bad things. But what we want to do with the women in our industry and within our company is help support them into leadership roles. How are we growing women within our company? So our Women of Wallbeck group is a fantastic way that we do that. We also started an affinity group. It is really kind of a cool thing. It is United Voices Wallbeck group, and it is a diversity group to promote people of color throughout our company, where there is a committee that meets and talks about different strategies, our culture. What do we need to change? What do we need to make better? And what can we do? More importantly, what are we doing to retain those workers that are coming in and growing that within our company? And so bringing people together with different backgrounds, and whether it's female, whether it is cultural, all of those different things, we're trying to continue to grow that within our company. So a little bit about the Women of Wallbeck. I sit on that committee, and we have, I think, about, I want to say 35 women on it. And it has been a wonderful experience the past year. The women who are involved in this Women of Wallbeck group are professional throughout our company. I think that sometimes we focus on people in the field and say the women in the field have the most barriers, right? Well, do they? I mean, you know, I think for apprentices overall, there's challenge and there's going to be things that women deal with in the field, but we're a part of a union. And so when you're part of a union, I think Stephanie mentioned it earlier, people are making union wages. And so women are making the same wage as the person next to them on the job. Within a company in the professional environment, I don't know, what are different women making, right? So what we want to do is bring women together so that they can become stronger by working together, offer leadership training, hear what they feel they need for professional development, and really, really promote a go-to group to ask questions, to how do I handle this, or hey, let's develop this. I mean, you bring in great minds in a group, and we have been having such fun. And I've gotten so many opportunities to do different training that I wouldn't have probably done if I wasn't part of this group. There's coaching sessions, team building, and I'll tell you, I met women within our company that I wouldn't have met without this group. So I think this is important for the growth of the women within our company. We also, as part of the Women of Wallbeck group, we started a mentoring program for our overall company. And we're a family of companies. There's 5 companies within Wallbeck group. And so there are women spread out throughout our company that probably have great relationships with their supervisors and the team they work with. But sometimes it's really nice to see a friendly face, someone who looks like you, someone you can go to and trust and talk to, and really maybe get some advice with different eyes, different perspective. So we started this program this past year. I am one of the mentors for somebody within our company. And so I will tell you the past, I think we've had 4 meetings now for myself and my mentee. We are meeting monthly. And really for each of us, it's a unique experience. And so some may just want someone to go to and to get some guidance or to vent or to ask questions. I think for the relationship that I'm developing within my mentee mentor relationship is going to be how to help that person grow and get training and go on and to be in a higher level leadership role. So that is really fun for me. You know, I come from a place where I didn't have a lot of mentoring. I worked in the industry and I felt like I had to claw my way up where I was before, and had to prove myself over and over again. And I was one of the few women in our company working within the construction industry on the level I was, working with labor management, and there weren't a lot of us. And so now within the company where I am now, I sit and I feel supported. I feel that even though I don't have a mentor, that many of the women who I work with from the Women of Walbeck group, if I need support, if I have a question, if I'm not sure how to handle something, I don't have to go just to my team, just to my immediate HR group. I can reach out to one of them and feel like we have each other's back all of the time. And I think that is really important. I really believe that as a woman in the industry, it's important that we put our hand out to the person who is next to us and behind us, and not sure where they're going, and make sure we hold on to it until they can feel strong enough to put their hand out to the person that is next to them or behind them. So I talked a little bit about who I am and where I come from. And, you know, I sit on a lot of different committees. I'm not even going to list them all. I think there's about 20 different committees and subcommittees I'm involved with, as my role is the outreach and partnership manager here at Walbeck Group. So I sit on our State Apprenticeship Advisory Council and a lot of subcommittees that are tied to equity and inclusion, the Equal Access Committee, Career Pathways. And one of the committees that I'm very happy and proud to be on is Empower, which is an all-union female group. And I'm not going to go too much into it because Kyla, my partner in crime, will be speaking next about it. She's the founding leader of it. I jumped on board right away because as a contractor, I think it is so important to support the growth and leadership and retention of women in the industry. So what's been important for me as part of Empower, when we do outreach events and when we're trying to promote women into the trades, as a contractor, I go to see how I can hire these women. Because Kyla can go and do all of these exciting things, but if you don't have an employer, they're at the other end. You know, somebody can be ready for apprenticeship, but if I'm not hiring them, they're kind of stuck. So the more employers that get involved in Empower and groups like this, it's going to be beneficial for building that pipeline, a diverse pipeline into the industry and for employers. So one of the things that people were asking about and talking about is how are we growing women in the industry and what are we doing to get women in? I'm a huge supporter of pre-apprenticeship programs. WRTP Big Step is one of my partners that we work with. And when I'm looking to hire and bring entry-level people in, my first go-to is going to be a program that is a training program where entry-level people are really getting basic training, you know, math and, you know, hands-on. If they haven't worked with tools, here are the things we're doing and the introduction to the various trades. So, you know, we're signatory to for trades, for unions. And I think it's important that these groups, these pre-apprenticeship programs, are tying people to the apprenticeship program so that when I'm looking to hire and I'm involved in these classes, I'm putting my eyes on the people in the class, and I can already begin mentoring and connecting with the people within the class. It is just such a great connection. So for an apprenticeship model, I think for us as a company, apprenticeship is a solid way to get into the industry, into the field, and utilizing the pre-apprenticeship programs and the apprenticeship model to build a woman up and to build entry-level candidates up, to give them the skills, to give them the soft skills, and to the confidence that people need. I think that what's important when we're out doing things, and I do a lot of outreach, you got to have the women with you. When people are looking to get in the trades, I have done probably thousands of outreach events and some with Kyla. And I will tell you, if you have a man at a table, or if you have and not that men aren't wonderful and valued and the you know, help in the industry, right? They're the heart of it. If you're looking to recruit a woman, you need a woman at that table to say, hey, look at me. This is what I did. This is what you can do. And also for that woman who's thinking of getting into the industry to ask questions that maybe they wouldn't feel comfortable asking a man. And for this woman, you know, doing the outreach event to help grow that person getting into the industry so they feel confident enough to have that conversation with the men and women in the industry, because it is not an all female industry. It's going to be important that the women getting in are built up, that they're strong, that there's unity amongst them so that they are successful and can be retained. We can talk about recruiting people in and bringing females in the industry all we want. It is programs like the pre-apprenticeship program, the Women of Walbeck, the mentoring programs, the face-to-face, the one-on-ones that the women getting into the industry that they get that will help retain them, where they feel valued, they have a go-to, they know who to ask a question to and feel confident asking it and putting their hand out to the person next to them or behind them. I'm going to wrap it up here and we can save the questions. Feel free to put them in chat. I'm going to pass it back to Stephanie so she can pass it over.
Thank you, Tracy. That was awesome. And without further ado, I am pleased to introduce Kyla Engelke.
All right, so as Tracy mentioned, we work together quite a bit. I'll tell you a little bit about myself before I get started explaining Empower to you, but I have been in the road building industry, so the union trade, since I was 18. I started as a laborer, and how I got into the trades was I had a parent that was an estimator for a big road building operation. So I initially was trying to pay for school, and I took the kind of like, I don't know if you want to call it the year off or whatever, that turned into kind of a lifetime. And it's kind of been, you know, how history has written itself. But I learned, you know, through my experience trying to pay for school that I really enjoyed my work and I liked what I was doing. So, you know, I got more and more involved with the trade. Eventually, I started a apprenticeship with the cement masons when I was 20 years old. And now I represent my trade as a business agent. So I spent lots and lots of years working in the field, and I learned a lot about, you know, like what it takes, how to be, you know, a good tradesperson, how to like perform the skills that are necessary. But I also, you know, like had, you know, it's, you know, the strong awareness that there was not a lot of women in the industry. And that was kind of something that along the way that it was always interesting to me to get, you know, to be able to get more involved and like try to make that one of the focuses. But I kind of like, at some point, I know when I graduated from apprenticeship, there was still like not a lot of females involved, like I mentioned, but one of my teachers, who was also a business agent, came up to me and said, we have a spot on the apprenticeship committee and we need someone like a woman or someone diverse to be on it. So you're perfect for it. And I was like, well, thank you. But I took on the position and learned a little bit more about how things kind of like worked as far as with the union or in the building trades, as far as, managing the trust funds and how the apprenticeship worked and more about how the union worked. So our apprenticeship committee then decided to hire a training coordinator, and I applied for that job and I got it. So for 7 years, I was our union's training coordinator, which obviously I was the first female, staff member of any type. A few years after that, I decided to run for a business agent spot, and I was elected to business agent in 2018. Pretty, crazy kind of election or whatever. Definitely had competition. It was definitely a fight, but it turned out well. But and I'm also the recording secretary, which is another elected, position. So, but from there, I was able to also kind of like broaden, and I represent the NAB2 Tradeswomen Committee. So there's one female from each trade that gets together at the international level, and we plan the tradeswomen conferences. We have a lot of other initiatives that we work on and work towards that are, obviously all based on helping, advocating for, promoting leadership for women in the industry, but all kind of under the blanket of the North American building trades, which is pretty cool. And then I also became the chairperson for our, at our last convention for our international, we developed a women's committee that was a resolution, and I'm the chairperson for that. So lots of cool kind of irons in the fire, I guess, if you want to say, or cool ways to be involved at a more, I guess if you want to say influential level, but it's pretty interesting and cool to see that nowadays it's a big focus, and everybody's kind of on the same page as far as wanting to get more women's feet in the door and in the field and in leadership and recognizing how important it is. And then through my involvement in the building trades here locally, in Milwaukee is my area of representation, but I'm able to, work with most of the people around the state in our building trades. But we did start, and we're coming up on today is our 2-year anniversary, actually, Tracy. I forgot about that. So, because March of 2019 was our first meeting. So this is our 2 years of a group that we call Empower. And Tracy,
I'll bring you wine later, Kyla. I'll bring you.
Virtual. It'll be virtual happy hour.
Right.
But Empower is feel like it's a pretty unique kind of group of women, but we represent any parts of the building trade. So whether it's but definitely all women. I mean, whether it's apprentices to journey workers to field foremen, field superintendents, supervisors. We have a couple engineers. We have a labor law attorney. We have HR representatives. We have a whole different, a whole kind of wide variety of everybody involved and everybody that has interest in, helping women become leaders and helping women be successful in these careers. So, our overall mission, enforce positive change for women in the industry, in the construction industry, to be visible and normalize the role of women in construction. So one of the things that we all kind of collaborate about and we all discuss is that a common goal that we have is to make it so that it's not a spectacle to see women on jobs anymore. No matter what position you're looking at, or no matter kind of what your perspective is. So as far as being visible, normalizing the role in the construction industry, that's what we, that's one of our definitely full, that's what we strive for. Support and retain women that are already in the industry. We've made it a point from the beginning to not be kind of a clearinghouse for if it's whining, if it's complaining, because that's kind of the opposite of, hopefully our vibe, but we definitely want to be able to like provide support or provide like advice, basically be mentors, for lack of a better way to put it, but be there for people to help them like overcome if it's, you know, any type of barriers that they might face. And kind of like in a, you know, as a side note on the, with regard to the NAB too, I think Stephanie did mention the Lean In program. I mean, that's another kind of like program that's real similar to like our ideals as far as like sustaining and retaining, but this is a push at the national level. And I just feel like our group Empower is definitely trying to kind of like fulfill our kind of like role in our little niche of the country or whatever. And then recruiting more women into the union construction careers, and then also at all levels. So, you know, obviously outreach and organizing to the apprentices and the young people is one thing, but we also are focused on helping people become leaders, understand how to, you know, if you want to run for a business agent spot, if you want to, you know, go for that, you know, like foreman position, like what are some of the things that we can do as a group that can kind of like help you get to that point? You know, if it's prepare you mentally, if it's, you know, help you create a good resume, if it's to make the right connections, it's also a network. And that's one of the things that's like powerful, just being in the union in general. So these, you know, these things aren't necessarily just specific to like what women need to do. This is what all people need to do to be successful too. We just have a group that's made up of women, but our goals and objectives obviously include, you know, trying to find more people, trying to, you know, our numbers are small, so to double them hopefully in the years to come isn't too big of a task, but we definitely want to be examples of successful tradespeople that hopefully can kind of, if it's inspire, if it's to welcome, if it's to, you know, show that you can do it, show that this is a viable option, show that, you know, for whatever reason, we enjoy what we do and we are here to help, and we're here to be a teammate to you and not to be, I guess one of the barriers as a tradeswoman myself, and Sharon, you might be able to like echo, or I don't know, the fact that there aren't and there haven't been tons of women, it almost, you know, like that spectacle factor. There could be some kind of like toxic energy involved with like being the only woman, and like maybe, you know, like competition between, you know, small numbers of women, but we try to like make sure that like that kind of stuff is hopefully going to the wayside, and that there's strength in numbers, and that there's power when we gather together and support each other and act as allies, and you know, just promote the ideals of solidarity within the union and within our you know, ranks top to bottom. And yeah, so I guess that's who Empower is. One of the things I'll mention is that a great, you know, collaboration when we're involved with the contractors like Tracy and a few of our other, you know, our other key members or whatever, is that like, you know, and like Tracy mentioned, and for me as a union representative that's looking to like, you know, we have to do manpower, so I have to find people for jobs and find jobs for people. But like one of the things that's critical is I can't do anything without my contractors needing people. So keeping those kind of like connections like alive, meaning like we're always knowing where we're at, we're always knowing where somebody good would fit based on our contractor needs compared to the, you know, the people that we're working with. So the whole relationship is super collaborative, and that's really necessary in order to be successful. But one of the really cool things about, I've been doing a lot of career fairs since I was the training director. This is about a decade that I've been, I guess if you want to say like in the office or on this side of things. And our events that collaborate between Empower and some of our contractors have been like some of the most successful so far, like lots and lots of, you know, connections made, lots and lots of careers have sprung up through like our, you know, our networking events and our events that have turned out to be pretty valuable. So I guess that's a summary. I guess that's what I wanted to say. So I think questions or comments are definitely the next on the list.
Yes, thank you. So there's a couple of questions. I think one is for all three of you, and I think this one is based off of where you're talking about with leaders. It says, if you don't have any women leaders to use in mentoring program, do you have any suggestions on, or any of you could actually answer this, how men can help foster a mentoring environment for women?
I guess my I don't know. I guess my my best advice about that is that, you know, when we do focus, you know, in our, you know, union settings on like upgrading and, you know, paying attention to that kind of stuff. One of the things that's really important is that leadership at a company or in an organization has the top down kind of like mentality that this is what they're going to focus on and this is what they're going to do. Sometimes it's a matter when you're making changes or when you're, you know, initiating a movement, I guess, if that's what this is, kind of, is that, you know, sometimes they're not even like realizing that it's necessary. So, I mean, just having an open mind to like being able to have conversations and, you know, look at a different face, understanding that, you know, we're all in the union here. So our, you know, collective goal is to keep our pensions strong and to keep our market share so that it benefits us all, and understanding that it benefits, you know, us all equally in this big team that we have going, that people are welcomed and people are trained and people are challenged and people are appreciated and respected. But I feel like that's an important thing to realize, is that, you know, like it might take some kind of like urging from the company or urging from management in order to make sure that people are aware of what's happening.
I would say that leadership, from a contractor perspective, the leadership of a company can make or break the work site. It is going to set the direction of how people are working on the job and how they're interacting. For our company, our leadership has sent a message that we are a diverse and inclusive company, and they stand by that. They're standing by it by putting together the different groups, doing training. I think men who are working in the field, it isn't anymore just about making sure that you can do field work. The other part of it, how are you training a very diverse group of people? Ethnicity, gender, the workforce is looking different. It's going to continue to look different in the next 10 years. And so the people who are in the field, who are used to being a certain way, also need to be educated. And that's going to come through conversation, through training. And as they see the benefits of having, I hate to say just females, right? But female diversity on the job. You bring different brains to a table and awesome things happen. And when they start to see that people are getting the job done and people are doing what they need to, and I say people, right? Women, men, when they see that's happening, that's when the change continues to go full circle.
Yeah, I think you definitely touched on it. It's people in general. Sharon, did you want to add to that?
Well, I just wanted to say, I don't think in the manufacturing side, we have more women than we do on the trade side. We're trying to recruit more, and not only recruit them, but retain them. I mean, there's a lot of women that do sign up for the apprenticeship program and they don't finish. And we're trying to find out reasons why, make it easier, for them, and try to keep them in there. But I think that the women that I'm dealing with, now that they're seeing more women get involved, they're getting excited about it. Nobody had ever thought about putting a women's committee together in our local. And now that we started one, I mean, women are excited about it. They want something that they can engage in and participate in. And it's good to see that they're excited about doing it, because when we first started it, we weren't sure how it was going to go over. But I think there's a lot of women that do want it. And I can say the election that I was voted in as the business representative, like Kyla said, I did have competition. There was another guy within our local that ran against me. And I had men that I worked with that said, I don't know why she's doing this. There's no way in hell she's going to win. And I ended up having twice as many votes as the guy that ran against me. So I think to see women in the positions that we're all in, it encourages them and gives them hope that, they can move up. They can move up to leadership positions. And where I don't think before, they just never thought about it.
Yeah. So definitely exposing, women in these positions, like by doing, stuff like this, right? Like by, putting your name out there and informing the folks. I mean, I think that is huge. How do you work with that culture of women feeling like they are competing with each other for a few opportunities that are available? It's open to anybody.
Are you referring to women competing for a job or competing on the job site? I'm not sure if I...
Probably, I would say for both. I mean, even within, so let's just do on the job.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to probably defer to Kyla and Sharon for that. For me as a contractor and as part of our HR team, I think that we promote such a, we have crews and we have smaller crews. So the crews become really, really close. I mean, they're working together. We're doing their hours on roads. So I think as those relationships are developed, they're working together, whether the women aren't competing against each other. They're working towards a common goal of completing the job. I think for us, the competition would be if we have one job open and 5 females apply, there might be competition there. But I think on the job, if women are doing, if our workers are doing what they're supposed to on the job, they're not going anywhere. We're going to do all of our best to keep our employees with us.
That makes sense. Kyla?
Yeah, I think we kind of I had a little bit of an unstable connection, so I didn't hear exactly what the question was, but
So it says, how do you work with the culture of women feeling like they are competing with each other for the few opportunities that are available?
Yeah, I guess for me, that's one of the things that with kind of a little bit more maturity, I'll say from the beginning when I first started in the industry, it was because there was this is 23 years, 24 years that I'm going on. And in the field, there was only a few of us all the time. And there was kind of a, just a vibe of that when there's for example, I was on a crew that there was 2 women and there was always a lot of banter between the men and a vibe that there was one of us that was the good one and one of us that wasn't as good there, you know what I'm saying? So there was a little, as far as the competition, that's kind of a drama that's drummed up, which is where, and for me, how you deal with it or whatever, that was just a maturity level within myself to kind of get over in noticing that there was more power and there was a better kind of positive culture involved and to be a part of when you collaborate with what we call our sisters, as opposed to kind of having this, I guess, if you want to say vibe of competition that kind of is I'm not going to say there's a lot of immature people that run around, but when you're doing work and you're getting stuff done, there are jokes, there are kind of underlying kind of things on the crew or conversations or whatever that happen and take place. And it becomes you spend lots of time with these people. So more sometimes than your families. So that's just kind of I guess if you that's my best way to describe it, is an underlying vibe that you kind of make sure that you're kind of rising above.
Well, I think the support groups and all of these different affinity groups really can help give some of the women guidance on how to handle that. And when they are
Sure.
looking, if they're working directly with Kyla or another person who's been in the industry for a long time, they're going to see how things are handled as opposed to maybe how they shouldn't be handled.
Right, right.
That's pretty much what I was going to say. Yeah, I think now that we're drawing attention to this and getting more women involved, I think that it's helping with that. I think it's getting rid of some of that, and I think we're, instead of being more cutthroat to try to get that spot from the other person, now we're supporting each other and have each other's backs. And so they know that it's okay to have two women on one job site. They're not in competition with each other. They should be there to help each other and support each other.
Right. Like normalizing more than one woman on that site. Like, hey, whoa, there you are.
Right. And that's where we go back to like trying to not make it a spectacle, because then some of that kind of stuff hopefully irons itself out or goes away. But like, women's groups, places where, like some of us that are, I guess we're going to say veterans or whatever, are like, reaching the hand back or opening up lines of communication to make sure that like people know that there are, more allies than there are, I guess if you want to say competition or whatever.
Are you finding that so Sharon had mentioned the retention, especially in the building the building trades portion of her committee. Are you finding that your groups that you're starting is actually and I know they're fairly new. So are you finding that you think that this is going to help towards the retention and maybe even possibly of recruiting more women? Obviously, the idea is to recruit more women, but you're hoping that then the retention is going to be there and it's going to be sustainable for the women that go into these the trades or the manufacturing sector. Are you finding that these organizations are helping? Not organization. These committees are going to be helping. With this, I mean, that's the whole goal. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah, in my opinion.
I think go ahead.
Go ahead, Sharon.
Sorry. No, I was just going to say, with the grants that we're applying for to try to help new apprentices with their tools, kind of our thinking there was, if we can help that, because that's sponsored by our women's committee. If we can say, here, the women's committee is doing this for you, to help you to get started and hopefully stay within the trade. We're hoping that, they'll think, oh, well, the women's committee did this for me, so I'm going to get involved with the women's committee and I'm going to try to help them, so that they will stay involved and help future apprentices and be a mentor to the new ones coming in.
Yeah, and I would add and echo, we haven't had the ability because of COVID to be as active and as kind of like face-to-face, or if you want to say hands-on, as like we would have liked to be. But moving into the future, we definitely, as our group or our committee, have plans and have, the intention to like provide direct mentoring, whether it's cross trades, cross like levels or whatever. But that is one of our goals, is to help with retention, to prevent people from, thinking that there's nothing they can do, to, have to move careers or quit an apprenticeship or leave a job, that we have, ways to kind of handle stuff or work through issues together as a group.
Just to add on, when Sharon was mentioning, I think she had said going for a grant to help pay for tools and to offset costs. One of the things that I do regularly as a contractor is work with WRTP Big Step, because part of what they do for me is they're screening candidates. They're able to apply for grants and have applied for grants or have funding that can help some of those entry-level people coming in who do have barriers, like Kyla mentioned. It could be childcare. It could be a it's, I have to pay for groceries, this and this, and I don't get my first check. I will tell you that there are women that we were able to retain when I reached out to WRTP Big Step to say, hey, We have somebody that, is really struggling. Can I connect them to you? They went through your program, and I can step back as an employer and let that work itself out. And those are some of the resources that are important. I mean, men are running into some of those same issues. They're becoming single fathers and having custody just as much as women, but it has traditionally been the woman who's taking that heat, or having to figure out what to pay, or oops, I ran into a driver license issue. All of those things that's so important to where the pre-apprenticeship programs come in, where people can build up those skills and get things together. And as Kyla mentioned, then if you're working with somebody and having sort of a mentor and somebody talking to you, so you know what is expected in the industry. It's great to read a book or to watch something on TV, but until you're actually there, it's nothing like it. It just isn't. So the more you are prepared, the more people that you can talk to and get information from and have those real life conversations, the more prepared and retainable people will be.
Thank you very, very much. There's actually a comment, and it says, the TANF programs also have supportive services that can pay for certain things related to work, like work clothes, tools, boots, etc., and also provide transportation funds. So yeah, that is something that we also work with closely as WRTP Big Step. So thank you, Carmen. Yes, food share and employment, absolutely. So there are a lot of those programs out there, and that's something maybe, Sharon, that you might want to also, look into, and we can also definitely try to communicate with you and see if we can find like workforce, intermediary who could in your area, and who knows, maybe we could be, something that we could discuss. But I want to definitely thank each and every one of you ladies on this panel. You have provided a lot of information, and we hope to keep this conversation continuing, because we know it's an important conversation, and not only just to inform people, but also for women, who are considering to get into these careers, to know that there's committees out there, from the trades, from the employer side, the contractor side. And I think, that just, it only reinforces, our job that we're trying to do here. So I really, really appreciate you taking the time to participate in this. I want to let you know that this is being recorded. So if you want to see the other breakout session, you will be able to, once this is over. We'll be sending you out the link to this. But yes, thank you very much. I welcome you to, I think we should be able to leave this, and then we should be able to, or we'll be brought back into the live portion of it. And if you want to, we will have a networking session at, for half an hour, if anybody is interested in talking to other people, from other areas. So again, thank you very much. And just as I was saying, there is the link to go into the networking room. It's going to begin in about 10 minutes. If anybody needs to, just jump off for a bit, but I appreciate it, and I hope to be in contact.
Stephanie, if I could just say, if there's anybody that is on the call and is looking to get in the trades, I know it's a very mixed group of people who are attending, feel free to give out my contact information.
Thank you.
I'm always looking for people to hire, but also not just to hire, but even if it's not with me, if I can help a woman get into the industry, I'm all about it. So feel free to share my information. And if anybody has questions, I'd be more than happy to talk to them.
Sure. Can you real quick just touch base on the trades that you primarily hire?
Yep. The unions that we're signatory to are cement masons, laborers, operating engineers, and carpenters. Those are the union trades, and we have opportunities throughout our company. We also have opportunities in manufacturing. We have plants, quarries. Look at wellbeckgroup.com/careers. Lots of things going on here. So I'd love to hear from you.
Wonderful. And before I actually just have everybody leave, I mean, unless they kick us out, but if anybody, Kyla, if you want to give just some last minute advice, and then Sharon.
Sure. Like Tracy mentioned, I don't have a problem if people are looking to get into careers or find out where you fit, but you can also find empower and resources to connect on. We're at MilwaukeeBuildingTrades.com .org, and there's a drop down for Empower, but I'm going to just chat the Milwaukee Building Trades website. So if you wanted to look further, it's like milwbuildingtrades.org. And like I said, there's a drop down for Empower. So, and that's important to realize and understand, is that all of us in the group, like, we're not, trade specific, although we are usually pretty like team minded about our own trades and our own companies and that kind of stuff. But we consider it successful to make sure that people find a spot somewhere and are happy doing what they want to be doing. So.
Thank you. Sharon?
And I just wanted to say, like Kyla said earlier, our women's committee, we had just really started picking up speed when COVID hit, and it was like a punch in the gut. And so hopefully when this, people start getting vaccinated and hopefully this gets back to whatever normal is going to be from now on,
right.
We can pick up where we left off and pick up speed again. It was fun, and we were getting people interested and having people show up for our events and planning career fairs and job fairs. And like somebody had said earlier, it's a big deal. I think it was you, Stephanie. It makes a difference to have a woman standing at the table at the career fairs, because they're going to be less intimidated to come up and talk to you and ask you questions. And that's kind of where we were right when COVID hit. So we're hoping to pick up there again as soon as we can. So
Yep. Tracy mentioned that, and you're absolutely correct. Representation is huge, and that's one of the things too that I, so in our office with WRTP, we try to definitely be intentional when it comes to recruiting, and when it comes to just informing folks. Tracy really touched on this too when they've done their recruiting, is that you try to bring, if you're looking for women, then you want to definitely have a woman represented there. So I think again, it is huge, to be able to see somebody like you, right, represented in possibly in what could be a career for you. So I think that that is key in all of this, really. So I thank you all. And again, I invite you to join the networking room. It won't open until about maybe 12:32, if I'm not mistaken. And if not, I appreciate you coming and hanging out with us and having this conversation. And unless there is any last minute questions, I don't see any, but I see Kyla's chat information for Milwaukee Building Trades. I see Tracy's information. I don't know, Sharon, if you wanted to provide your information about your committee, or just even your information, that would be fantastic. Again, we will be able to, you'll be able to get this in a recording after this is all done and over. So again, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And if you plan on being in the networking group or room, I will possibly see you there.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you, Kyla and Tracy. And thanks everyone for joining in. And thank you, Sharon. I will definitely make sure that people will get your information.
Hey, Stephanie, I don't know if you can hear me. It looks like there's a few left in here, but everyone else has probably dropped out for the most part. So I'm going to go ahead and get the other room going. The networking room just started. There's a couple last people dropping out of this one. And then that's about it. So is there any special messaging or anything you need in the networking room?
No, just that, feel free to network with everybody. I was going to jump in real quick just to see, and then we'll go from there. Awesome. See you over there. Thank you. Thank you, Sharon. I so much appreciate you taking the time out. And now that you also have Kyla's information, feel free to reach out, and definitely Tracy too. I think she, she can give you some kind of pointers too, as far as, because she had involvement with Empower and then bringing it back into her, employee, so employer.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it, and I appreciate all the information.
You're welcome. Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.